Martin here, who's going to get it? Butters will get it. Hoists it high inside the 50. They need a mark. Finlayson's there. D'Ambrosio roved it. Serious pressure on. Amon's tackled. Second by Brad Jones. He brings the house down. And he brings Port Adelaide back from the clouds to claim the most extraordinary win.
All right, hello and welcome to the Creedcast. My name is Dave, and as always, thank you for listening, tuning in, watching on YouTube, whatever format you prefer to consume the content. We love it. Make sure you like, subscribe, like the videos on YouTube if you're watching them, or just go on there and give it a like, even if you listen to it on Spotify, because it just helps the algorithms or however it works, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever other formats you use. Likes, subscriptions, giving it 5 stars, whatever else works. Really helps us out. Especially, and it's just so much fun to be here doing this, especially after such a super fucking exciting way, as your Yartapuulti Footy Club, in the most improbable, the most wild, the most wonderful of ways, came back from the canvas. They were just beaten down, absolutely knocked out, pretty much 6 feet under the canvas late in the third quarter, as they were 41 points down. But came back to stun the visiting Hawthorn Hawks with a score of 11 goals, 14-80 versus the Hawks. More goals. It's always a rarity in footy when you can win a game by kicking less goals. At 12 goals, 7-79 for the Hawks. An effort that was almost entirely confined to the fourth quarter, one quarter of footy, and was preceded by some pretty abject and frustrating football. But as you said, Jamie, last week, in quoting the well-renowned street racer, family man, and purveyor of international espionage, Dominic Toretto, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or win by a mile. Winning's winning. So in saying that, there's plenty to discuss. Lots of good, some bad, but overall the vibes are very positive when you win a game like that. Jamie, have you recovered yet? That's the first question, because it was a Sunday afternoon game, so you have less time to recover than usual with our podcast on a Tuesday, Arvo.
Yeah, very quick turnaround. Yeah, had to collect myself, as interesting Matthew Lobe would have said back in the day. But yeah, g'day to you. Hello to everyone listening and watching. Yeah, thanks for joining us on what is going to be a very interesting review of a very, very interesting game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely had the Fast and the Furious in my mind coming home on Sunday after we discussed it. Last week, like you said, and as you know, I watched it on Friday night because I couldn't help myself. So yeah, very fitting the way that we won in the end. Except it was, for those who've seen the Fast and the Furious, we were the ones using the 2 fuck off cans of NOS, and we actually won the race rather than burning out and falling just short. So
yeah, watching the manifold drop off. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Just what the fuck just happened? What the hell just happened? Was definitely on repeat coming out of my mouth in the immediate aftermath of that game, and I'm sure I wasn't alone in that camp, because no one on the planet could believe it when it happened right in front of us.
Right in front of me. They were robbed.
Yeah. Well, it definitely felt like we were burglars. For sure.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone who stayed really felt like we deserve. Do you want to throw out the word deserve? I don't know.
I mean, that's an interesting one. It's a good way to start. I did have it in my notes just to maybe start on the finish on the game, because it is incredible, and it's one of those things. It's why we're sports fans, is like these moments that you lose your mind.
Absolutely.
I said on the night, I think I told you, I know a couple of people I chatted to, I was just like, yep, woke my wife up, woke half of Pasadena up, I think. And Andrea actually went to bed at halftime because she was like, the game started at 10:30 our time, which is a good time after a rough run of 2 a.m. start. So she watched the first half and she was just like, every time I watch him lately, they look like she's doesn't get up for the 2 a.m. ones or anything like that, but a few of the early ones she's watched. Yeah. And last year, one of the early ones was Collingwood at the MCG. That one was got smashed there, and there was another one last year, and than this one. She was like, I'm going to go to bed, see what happens. And then, yeah, she just, her next memory after that was just me. I was flailing my arms around. I was like slapping the couch, like, yes, yes, yes. Just hear this croaky, like, shut up. Because she didn't understand what had happened. I don't think she
No.
expected that we're going to come back and win. So
No
she
one
was
who
like,
was awake understood what happened, let alone someone who's,
but
dead to the world, so to speak.
yeah, but that's why that's that kind of emotion that kind even though I'm just like, oh God, I should be quieter, but like that 10 seconds of unbridled emotion that you're able to let go of is just why you do this. It's like, I was thinking, as particularly with Liverpool, like Jurgen Klopp leaving Liverpool the next morning, which was also on it. Probably I was more heavily emotional at the time too because I was already
Yeah,
thinking about
yeah,
that.
it was a big
Um,
night for Port Adelaide and Liverpool supporters.
Yeah, I was thinking of when Divock Origi scored that goal at the end of the derby against Everton back
Yeah.
in 2019, and it was just
Oh, okay. Yeah, right,
the
right.
most improbable of goals, the header off of
Yeah.
the come back off the bar in the
I thought you were
96th
going to say
minute.
the quick corner against Barca.
That's a different. Yeah,
Uh,
that was also very emotional. But that was like we were already on a cut. But like that Divock Origi one felt like more akin to this because
yeah.
it was like, oh, we should have beaten them, but we haven't. It was a draw.
Yeah, we
It's
played like shit.
but then this most improbable goal at the end of the game in the last second because that was pretty much one of the last kicks of the game or last header of the game as it was. And Jurgen Klopp coming running onto the field to hug Allison like halfway down the field, which he's not meant to do. And
No.
he admitted as much
He makes
later
his
on.
own rules.
He admitted as much later on that he just like in those moments he just loses his mind, and that was kind of like what it was in this moment for me. And I'm sure in the ground, I was just watching the replays over and over again as we have. Um, and again, the soccer parlance from fans over in England, they talk about just absolute limbs when you get a result like that, and because people are just people are flailing
Yeah.
around like the waving arm inflatable tube man, and it's just limbs going
Yeah,
because
yeah.
no one's got control of their bodily function for 10 seconds in those moments, and that's what it looked like on the TV, and that's why you do this. So yeah, you started on and saying, did we deserve it? I'm just like, well, if you come back and find a way to win in that sense, I like
Dominic
because
Toretto definitely
yeah,
thinks we
and
deserved it.
Hawthorn losing a 40, like does a team that drops a 41-point lead deserve to win it if they actually lose it? Now that was almost our question to ask ourselves last week, but we held on.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
if
I
we
had thought of that point too.
yeah, and if we'd gone on to lose against Geelong, I would have said, well, we don't deserve to win because we had to, it's the same as Collingwood coming back and they even though they smashed us completely by in the end, but if you get in those kind of leads and then you're letting them slip, then I wouldn't have thought we deserved to win against Geelong if we'd gone on to lose, but we held on, and that's why I think you deserve to. If you
That's
get
why you deserve
if
to win. Yeah.
there's a massive injustice, and not to give the Crows too much love, but like that, their injustice at the end of last year against the Swans. While again, I'll say very fucking funny to me, and I'll continue to find it funny because it's just it happened to them, but that was an injustice, and
It's like a bad dream for them
yeah,
not to sit on that too long. But yeah.
yeah. But yeah, we got across the line at the end. With a few seconds to go, and so you deserve to win. That's how I look at it.
That's
Like,
it.
yeah. Which is very easy to say. Like again, we're a Report Adelaide podcast. We've got a bias, so but I've gotten better at like if we lose a game, and even if it's the last second, even if I think we've done everything right, like we did against Geelong, if we'd gone on to if Geelong had come over the end, come over the finishing line with the win, then I would have been disappointed and said that's frustrating. I never would have been like, oh, we got robbed. It's just that's footy. So yeah.
I tell you what, there's a lot of statuses and tweets that should really be deleted on social media. A lot of people embarrassing themselves in hindsight, a lot of whoppers out in the stratosphere of social media. I'm glad that you run the Twitter page because I was at the game, so, and like I've said before, I don't really like to get on my phone, but yeah, I feel because this is a podcast and like your play-by-play is it's attached to a brand and whatnot, and it's not like you're a personal account and can just go, oh no, none of this matters anymore. Like, we need to be held accountable to our or your, in that regard, comments and thoughts and whatnot. But yeah, for people running their own personal accounts and things like that, tagging cane corns and stuff like that, it's football and it's sport. sport has a way of just pulling the rug out, and it's part of the reason why I don't chat shit to people who support other teams than I do, because
Mm,
we all know how quickly it can come back and make you look like a fucking idiot. And yeah, there was some absolute whops, and we were all very disappointed, right?
mm,
Like, I'm pretty sure it was definitely on the podium for the most frustrating games I've ever watched,
mm.
and probably further to that, been to live. But you gotta, if you can keep your emotions in check,
Mhm.
before tagging Kane Corns and whoever else and whatnot, it's I don't know. In my opinion, I like to let a whole game play out before I make a knee-jerk reaction, because even in the aftermath, whether it be win or lose, it's still knee-jerk, but at
Mm.
least you've got the whole body of work under your
Yeah.
belt before yeah, you embarrass yourself. But yeah, I just thought that was pretty funny, because I from on my Twitter, I tend to live in the For You page. I don't I
Mhm.
like to just yeah, scroll across a few landmines, and it just to kind of resist a bias as well, just see all opinions.
Mhm.
Obviously, the algorithm still goes towards what your proclivities are, but yeah, even on like even yesterday, there's still like some tweets from Sunday, and I just like, dude, you can delete this. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
like, you. But like I said, I think everyone was in the same boat come halftime, where
Mhm.
the red mist was definitely setting in, and
Oh yeah. I was just
yeah,
sitting there
we
just
we can't take the good without acknowledging the bad,
mhm.
and like yeah, it was at fever pitch, um, at stages of that game
Yeah. How
with
was it
how the
how was it in the ground for you? Like I know you have fans around you, and what was the general I guess
oh,
if we want
it's
to go into,
terrible.
because we'll get
I
into the good part of it again later on, because the fourth quarter was great, but we should talk about maybe just now that we've gotten into it a bit, the first half in particular. I think,
yeah,
yeah. How was it?
yeah. So
How was the energy, the vibes?
oh, the energy was poor. It was bad.
That goes for
I
on field too.
yeah. Well, funny how it works in a symbiotic way there.
Yeah.
Yeah, fan and player alike in those moments. And
Mhm.
yeah, I mentioned to you and the listeners last week that I was taking my daughter, who's 2.5, for the first time this year. And I don't know if I said it on air, but I've definitely said it to you, and I said it to a lot of other people, where now when I've taken my daughter, I took her to a handful of games last year, and that was her first kind of exposure to football, and
Mhm.
had a bit of a calming effect, because obviously, you've got a little child there, and I don't know, you don't want to be seen like a monster in their eyes, but also, set a decent example as a parent. Um, so yeah, I was saying to everyone about how good it will be, because yeah, she'll keep my emotions in check, so to speak. Again, I'm a grown adult and I should be able to
Mhm.
do that myself. But as well as that, I think everyone was expecting a nice, comfortable win. I know we were
Yeah.
talking about, 6, 8, 10 goals in our preview section, but that absolutely did not happen. And for
Mhm.
anyone who was sitting around me who wasn't as passionate, and fortunately, I sit in reserved seating, and there's a lot of people who are as passionate as I am, and I see them every home game. But for anyone who kind of just found their way into Bay 535, who was a bit, on the fence, or is a bit of a leisurely spectator of the game, they would have thought I was probably one of the most annoying cunts in the world. I was at the end of my tether for a large portion of that game, and I did not set a good example for my daughter. So
Mhm.
yeah, like I said to you off air, she absorbed and learnt a lot of colorful language, particularly in the first half.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean,
so
that's
yeah,
good. Yeah.
that's me.
That's footy. That's footy though. Like, and I think you and I, but like, I've gotten better at managing my in stadium. It's funny you bring up couple. I
I thought I had
remember,
to.
yeah, and but then a game like that happens,
Everyone
and
relapses from time to
yeah,
time.
It's a safe space, Jamie. We'll get
Yeah,
through. We'll
yeah.
get through this.
Hi,
Um,
I'm Jamie, and I'm an aggressive watcher of football.
Hi, I'm David. I also am. And I think Port Adelaide fans are certainly, for the good and the bad. The reason the
Yeah,
club is so passionately supported for 150 plus years is um, expectations and a
parochialism.
demanding, parochialism and a demanding of sticking to those expectations, particularly in a game like this where we expected to win a lot more comfortably. But I did think you reminded me of I was at a Portland Timbers soccer match, like major soccer over here in the US, like back in 2012, I want to say.
Yeah,
I was there
wow.
with a couple of mates from college, and one of them who's from LA. The same actually. I went to the Portland Timbers LAFC match with the two of them and partners and everything just a couple of weeks ago. Actually, the first time we've all gone to a game together since then, probably.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
and I remember it was against Chivas USA, who don't even exist anymore. But towards the end of the game, we were losing 2-1. I think we ended up losing 2-1. Just typical soccer stuff where the team that's ahead in an away game is doing, ticky-tacky fouls and laying down too long and faking injuries, all that kind of stuff. And I was at the end of my tether, and I was also in college, and so a lot younger, and fueled by probably 8 to 10 Oregon IPAs, which usually are 7 to 8%, and have there's
Yeah.
something special in the water in Oregon, I think. But I stood up and just started. There was a guy that had gone down near us. I was like, he's going to be able to hear me if I yell loud enough. So I'm just stood up and let loose. And then I looked down after, and like my buddy who's typically similar to me is actually tapping me on the shoulder and being like, David, David, David. And I like looked down as a father, and like with it's probably a similar situation to you. The little boy was about 6 or 7. And the father's kind of looking at me, and he's like, oh, mate, like he doesn't say mate, he's whatever American parlance is, but he goes,
Yeah.
look, I agree, but my son hasn't heard those words before. So I just need you to calm down a little bit. But again, I agree. I just went, oh, I'm sorry, and I just sat down. Oh
Yeah.
god. So
I was the
sports
one with the kid though. Yeah. Oh, it's a
again,
little bit
safe space,
embarrassing.
and look, and again, this is what probably the frustration we have Port Adelaide playing is that like played in that first half is that we know that we can be so much better than that. And we had the proof was in the pudding last week in the pressure that we put on right from the off against Geelong last week. This week, we're going into the game on an 8-day break, I think. The
Mm.
longest, one of the longest breaks you can get in the season of footy is Friday night through to the Sunday the next week. And coming back home to play on that Sunday as well. It's not like you're traveling again or anything like that. There's a lot of reasons to expect a decent, just to come out and go along with it as we had last week, and it just didn't happen. And again, the pressure was poor. I think the pressure over the pressure rating across the game. Actually, I don't even know if the pressure exactly was poor. It was it the execution? The pressure was the tackling and stuff. It was particularly in that first 10 minutes. I had a note. I actually went in and screenshotted what the inside 50s were after 10 minutes of the game. 9-2.
Mm.
Just terrible. And it's just they were Hawthorn were braver with the ball. They were doing their little handballs quick. They quick move, and they clearly know. And it's a problem. And we've talked about it a bit, and we'll talk about it again. And this is that like teams know if they can get a handball chain going and overlapping runs. We just don't defend that transition very well at the moment. And they utilize that really well. Blake Hardwick apparently just should probably get signed by Port or Adelaide at some point because apparently he likes kicking bags at Adelaide Oval.
Adelaide Logo,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I think he had 4 or 5 in the gather round match against Collingwood that they almost won as well. But yeah, it was really, really poor execution, and just I can't even pinpoint an exact area. It was just skills were poor and kind of a lot of passing. Like they weren't. There was a few moments where you'd in a contest around the ball, you'd have a couple of our players just standing kind of off the like expecting someone else to do the work, and it was just like there was just they
Mm.
weren't everyone wasn't on the same page, and I just was really disappointed to see that again. And it just speaks to I don't know if it's preparation. Again, we've talked about preparation a lot because unfortunately you look back to the prelim final in 2021 or the Hawks game in the Russell Ebert tribute game, which
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
long
They
while this
both
one was
came to mind for
yeah.
me. Yeah.
And it just goes. I don't know what goes on in the pregame, uh, but then you go to Geelong, and so there was I did tweet out a few, and as you mentioned, like I try to remain as calm as possible, and it gives me a healthy outlet to try and work through my emotions by putting out tweets that aren't complete random chaos. But I put out a few. I was just like, there's no point going down to Geelong and trying to prove a point, and then coming back and putting that kind of shift in that first half. I was just like, this is if we lose, and if we'd gone on to lose the game as we look like we're going to up until the last 45 or last 20 seconds, last 3 seconds, whatever, whatever point you suddenly thought, oh shit, we can win this. It's really right up until it came down to Burn Jones's foot. I don't think anyone thought we were going to win it, but yeah, I just was like, that makes that result so not that it's useless because it's an extra win on the season, and we would have been down in ninth at the end of this game if we'd gone on to lose it. And that was my frustration, was what are we doing week to week because clearly we went into that Geelong match and thought, okay, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at them, be brave, do this, do that. And then this game, it seemed like, and I think I made a note about what Brian Taylor, again, I'm not going to give him too much love for his commentating because he also called Jace Burger and Peter Burger on at one point. But he just said like 6-7 minutes into the game, he said, "Look, he's just kind of musing, kind of ruminating on what he was seeing in front of him. And he just goes, it seems a little bit too predetermined what Port Adelaide are doing." I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember the exact quote, but I just had a quick note.
Yeah.
And it kind of spoke to what I was feeling frustrating early, and just. Yeah, I don't know what it was like inside the ground for you, but it just felt like we'd gone in with a preconceived notion. I think I tweeted something similar. Actually, when I tweeted out the quote, I said that's kind of what I've been thinking, and something that we've had an issue with before, I think, as well is, and it's again, you said the expectation. I was thinking of the 500 Days of Summer. I don't know if you've seen that one, but
yeah,
when his expectation versus reality, when he's going to the party with Zoe Deschanel's character. And like his expectation, there's a side by side view, and his expectation is romance, blah blah blah, and the reality is he's kind of just getting.
Did that start the expectation and reality kind of meme format?
Possibly, because that movie was 2009, 2010. So and well before it was well before meme culture really took off. So it's an interesting one.
But good scene though. And that's someone who's been in like a situation shit, I guess you could say.
That movie is
definitely. Yeah. Expectation versus reality got a huge shock on Sunday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
But where to start? One of the more sensible yet still loud comments that I made at the game was that it seems that we were playing like a bunch of individuals, particularly when we'd copped a few on the chin by Hawthorn, and tried to overcomplicate things at certain points. And like it drizzled just before the game started as well, and then stopped. So watching it on the TV, you're probably watching it going, oh, there's no rain. Why does this look so difficult? And particularly Hawthorn were making it look far less difficult. And we're slipping over every 2 seconds. But for all intents and purposes, especially when like every ball is new and there's that sheen of water over the top of the ground, I just hate it when us specifically, but football teams just don't adjust to the weather. And it's like it's a part of the over coached style of football that is modern football, right? Every club, every team, everyone is coached, and strategy and tactics are done to the nth degree. And it's not just us. Like you see other games across a weekend, across a year, particularly when it comes into winter and it'll be raining, but teams still try and create handball chains, for example. And just like, it's just automatic. And as a spectator, again, a nuffy who's played fuck all football, just loves to watch it. You're just sitting there and like at the ground, it was like, why are you just all of a sudden playing like individuals? And B, why are you trying to overcomplicate it? Just fucking take territory. Now, what I would say is that Hawthorn was set up perfectly
Mm.
from first ruck, but also their defensive structure was perfect. And it's what we've kind of seen from West Coast in round one, Freo and St Kilda, albeit they play a more defensive style of football. But what Hawthorn did perfectly well was they got it forward as quickly as they could, threw caution to the wind, and when we got the ball back, they set up a really fantastic wall across their half forward line, our half back line, which just forced us to sit on the ball and try and play a possession game again while it was wet. And
Mm.
that was frustrating to a point. They also kept a goalkeeper back, which you couldn't really see on the telecast, which is probably, again, why people are watching it from home and going, why aren't you just fucking moving it with a bit more speed? And part of the reason was that they were, at all times, from what I can remember, keeping the last line of defense intact, no matter
Mm.
where the ball was on the field. But there was their wall in particular that I thought was a fantastic strategy, because they were getting silver service from the ruck, and we'll touch on the ruck situation, I'm sure.
Mm.
They were getting absolute silver surface. Their midfield came with an absolute appetite for the contest and speed. If they weren't getting dirty, they were winning it on the outside as well.
Mm.
Again, which is a huge indictment on our midfield, because at the end of the day, Ollie One still played the first quarter, and it, it just overall seemed like an insipid and confusing, like, comparison to, like you said, last week. And even further to that is that the majority of our first quarters have been pretty good.
Mm.
Like, it's so, yeah, you mentioned the Russell Ebert game and the Western Bulldogs preliminary final. It definitely had that feel to it, for sure. The only difference is that Western Bulldogs in 2021 were a very good team, and they absolutely did not give us a way back in.
Mm.
And the Russell Ebert game, well, who the fuck knows what happened there? On top, apart from Hawthorn had a fantastic kicking game, and we just didn't wrestle back momentum. But one thing I will say is that as you know, I just watched the first half, and I thought it was very, very interesting, particularly when you're watching the game. You don't, like, live, this is, whether it
Mm.
be on the TV or at the ground, you're full of emotion. You know, you don't know the outcome because it hasn't happened yet. And, like, for me, that first quarter absolutely separated the whole game.
Mm.
We had to do the hard work all because of that first quarter. Had that first quarter been split even, like, the whole game would have been a whole lot easier. But they'd only had one goal, I think, until, was it just under the 12-minute mark, or
Mm.
12
Yeah.
minutes to go in the first quarter, and they scored their second goal in and around that time. But we actually had a few, not a few, that's downplaying it. We actually had plenty of the ball in the first 10 minutes of that
Mm.
first quarter. It was just like I said, we overcomplicated it when all the things that were working in our favor last week just evaporated, and we didn't take it on. We didn't take them on, regardless of the defensive structure that I just mentioned. It got to, like, half forward, and for whatever reason, we didn't take an opportunity, or it managed to get inside 50, because I think it was, what, 4 inside 50s in the first quarter.
Mm.
Yeah,
To
just
17.
nothing happened. Yeah, nothing happened.
Yeah.
But there were passages of play in the first quarter, and particularly the first 10 minutes, that were pretty good,
Mm.
but nothing happened out of it. And again, that's probably still the mental side of it. We didn't take advantage of anything that we worked for, if you want to call it that,
Mm.
in that first quarter. And then the last 10 minutes just blew out. And yeah, again, another bugbear of everyone's is it got a bit junk timey.
Mm.
You know, like, for Hawthorn, like, you can view Hawthorn however you want. but they're a well-coached team.
Mm.
They came in with some momentum, and this is a team that beat Collingwood last year. You know, that giant killing isn't out of their repertoire.
Mm.
So you have to pay them the respect. And a bit like the start of the Richmond game is I don't think we paid them anywhere near enough respect, particularly Will Day, and Jai Newcomb, James Warple are contested beasts when they're on, and everyone was on, particularly when they were getting the ball handed to them out of the ruck. So it's a very interesting culmination of perception and, you know, what actually happened in the time, and just some opposing views to what it seemed like, because it seemed like the world was ending. And then we actually won the second quarter, marginally, granted. But at quarter time, you just, you've got everyone was shell shocked. Crowd was pretty fucking quiet.
Yeah, you could hear it in the telecast.
In the
over here.
telecast, there was nothing going on.
Yeah, and really the crowd noise only finally happened probably that last minute in the end. But yeah, that first quarter was, and even because I actually I made the note for some reason on the night because I was frustrated. I went in and screenshotted when at quarter time and halftime what the inside 50 numbers were. And quarter time it was 17-4, obviously in their favor, and then at halftime it was 30-15, which, you know, just looking at it as numbers without, you know, looking at the first quarter, you go, well, that's pretty bad. But we'd evened it up. That's 13-11 in that second quarter. So we'd started wrestling that momentum back as far as getting some possession and time in our forward half and all that stuff. And we'd gotten a goal or, you know, 6 or 8 points back. We'd started to work our way back into the game, and tried to wrestle that momentum. And you go in halftime 22 points down or whatever it was. You go, look, that's a platform back into the game. Still not great, but I have to say, when that rain started pissing down at the start of the third quarter, and then I just sat there and thought, "Fuck, this is how." Like, I thought it was just going to keep pissing down, and we were gonna, and it did for a little bit, but luckily it cleared up a bit. But I thought that was, I think I put it out on Twitter as well. I said, "This is why you can't start slow and expect to work your way back into a game sometimes, because if you give another team a platform, a plucky team." And the AFL is very even this year as well. That's something we should acknowledge. Is like teams are. You know, I've just seen West Coast inspired by Harley Jesus, apparently, which I watched. I actually watched that game in the end because I was so hyped from our game. I just stayed up and watched that one as well. And, you know, they've got some good young talent, plucky talent, and obviously Waterman helping up there in the Coleman as well. And they're knocking off Melbourne in a pretty dominating fashion. And Melbourne a few weeks ago were, you know, right up there as premiership favourites and still are well looked at. They're just in a bit of an interesting patch at the moment.
But just goes to show that,
you've got to be on. Yeah.
Typifies your point. Like, that how even that AFL football can be.
Yeah. Well, what's frustrating?
Like this, I was definitely going to mention the Melbourne game because
it was an interesting parallel on the day.
Sports fan, it was a sobering. I don't know if that's the right word, but it helped for, again, reasonably minded people. It just helped offer a bit of perspective of the competition as a whole. And, you know, you kind of appreciate that the fact that we'd actually gotten over the line a bit more by seeing Melbourne not come back, albeit it was in Perth. But, and again, the friend that I've mentioned on this podcast, he also works at my work in a different department, but we were chatting and I said to him that the friend that's a Melbourne fan, I said to him that, you know, like footy fans, like in this prism of AFL football, we tend to think that our issues are exclusive. And then, you know, and then for Port Adelaide supporters, and particularly the people who aren't fond of Ken, and fair enough to an extent, they'll get annoyed at some of the platitudes that he always comes out with. But most AFL coaches also run the same footy platitudes. So, watching Melbourne after our game, it was just like, there you go. That's the comp. We need to be better. But fucking anything can fucking happen if you're not on. And countless people in the AFL industry say that same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I interjected on a larger point that you were making. But yeah, definitely wanted to bring up Melbourne myself too.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was trying to think where I was going, but I was more or less at the, but it was yeah, it was that third quarter, and that's why I was. It was the fact that we weren't on at the start, and yeah, AFL footy, especially in the modern game, is a lot more of a game of runs. There is like, watching a bit of NBA basketball as well. You see teams, teams go on runs all the time, and then they do their rotations. Very different sport, but you can find some parallels in how the rotation sometimes a team can get back into it, and then sometimes you drop off a little bit, and everything can go against you. Like, Minnesota came back and knocked off the defending champion Nuggets last night with a 27-point comeback. Like the Nuggets should have been home. Yeah, so these things can happen in a lot of sports, and we see it in a lot of different games, especially as people and AFL being as athletic as it is. But that's why I think it's so frustrating for us as sport fans as well, as we know, especially with such a recent example, as we can start better. And yeah, and again, it's a winter sport. You can't always expect the weather to hold on. I think the rain wasn't expected to be like that, but it was there, and that's just
no. I definitely didn't expect it.
Yeah, that's just what happens sometimes. And we know the weather can be as
maybe
pretty...
Hawthorn knew something everyone else.
Yeah, because they were just like, let's get out.
That's why they jumped out of the blocks.
Yeah,
they knew it was coming.
But they were plucky and got their way out of the blocks. And in that third quarter, we actually led a bit more. I think the lead was out at when I know it got out to 41 points. I think it was back down to 28, 29 points by a three-quarter time.
Yes, and that was vital.
Yeah, in the end, yeah. But even at three-quarter time, I was thinking that we've let the lead get out a little bit again, rather than, because you want to kind of, if you're going to attempt to come back, you generally want, be within 10, 12 points, but
chip away quarter on quarter.
Yeah, and at three-quarter time, you want to look at it and go, 4 kicks gets us ahead. That's kind of always, I think, for the unlikeliest of comebacks, I think we need to be within 4 kicks, and we weren't. And so I just thought we have to get an early one. I think, and we didn't really score much until it was the second half of the quarter, I think. Anyway, so
that's a great point. Yeah,
the way we did it was just, the third quarter was again,
it was 11. Hang on, 11 minutes into the last quarter that Rioli kicked a goal. So
yeah, I think that was the one off the Georgiades kind of didn't quite mark it, and it spilled over the back.
Square,
yeah, and Rioli just gets it on the boot quick. Another great Rioli goal. He's leading our goal kicking at the moment. So it was frustrating, and I think that's why I do want to bring up how frustrated I was, and how much, like, again, you mentioned, like, you just got to be, the people on social media, the reason that I fight back against the worst of it is, like, you want to kind of be level-headed about your criticism. And, I was frustrated. What was Ken's preparation going into this game? What went wrong? And, we'll never find that out. So you've just got to kind of, discuss it as best as you can without actually knowing what happened in a sanctum. But it just does raise the question again of what we're doing preparation wise, and what we're, to go into a game like this, because we do want to see, and last year was a similar issue sometimes, as we play down to opposition and whatever, because so it's always interesting when you've got such a good game against a good opposition, really in close proximity to it, to compare against. And so, I wanted to make a point that, it is frustrating. The forward line wasn't really clicking very well, and didn't really even click much in the last quarter even as well. Georgiades was quiet. Dixon, I think Dixon still looks hurt. I don't know if there's got to be a managed one coming up here soon. I guess we'll possibly talk about that later. But
one thing I will say, just to quickly interject, is that I think Dixon being put into the centre affected our changing of attitudes and the fortunate events to come after it. I truly believe that, but I don't disagree with the point you just made.
Yeah, it was once he started, and look, we've said it a bunch on the podcast, and a lot of fans have said it as well. We don't want to see Dixon in the center, because that's why we made the moves we did, but obviously Soldo's
Mhm.
injured. Sweet was ill last week, and we gave Vicentini another run this week, and just Lloyd Meeks just a monster and just monstered it pretty well. But yeah, the forward line really wasn't functioning very well, and I guess that is a coaching question and goes to the forward line coach as well, and so all the frustrations, and I'm really still unsure of what to think about coming out of the game,
Yeah.
as to what we're doing going forward, because the forward line is a big question mark for me. Our two leading scorers are, Rioli got 17 on the season. Burn Jones has 14 on the season. It's interesting that those two are the top two, considering the end of the game and how it went as well. It's a nice
Kind of
little,
awesome too.
yeah. It's
I don't know, yeah.
I love having those guys in the leading scorers. It's just you want to see. You'd like to see. Obviously, Dixon. I think his fitness has played a role in him because he's got 12 or 13 on the season still. He's
Right.
yeah, because I think Marshall's got 11 or 12, and then Georgiades has got 10, which is interesting because Georgiades hasn't played as many games, but he got most of those in the first couple of games back, I think.
Yeah.
So you'd want to see at least one of those names getting up there and opportunities to kick more goals, and they're actually not getting many opportunities lately, which is part of the problem. And then when they get their opportunities, they're sometimes missing them, which is, I think that's and I've talked about it with you before as well in past weeks. My biggest bugbear on the forward line isn't so much the goal kicking, though it is an issue at times. It's because they're not getting enough opportunities with how we're playing. So it extrapolates the goal kicking issues that much more when
Yeah.
they don't kick
Yeah,
in,
I know
because
what you're saying.
you're sitting there thinking, well, they're only getting 3 or 4 opportunities a game. If they kick 2 goals too, it looks worse. And and
Puts
Buddy,
more pressure on them too
yeah, when Buddy
to
Franklin
convert.
yeah, when Buddy kicked 10 goals, 8, no one cared because he was getting 10 anyway. He's out of 18 opportunities, he was kicking 10. So you kind of let it go, even though he'd missed some ones that you're just like, geez, he can curl that one in from 50 on an angle, but he's running in straight ahead and shanks it to the right. So as I brought up a few weeks ago, the greatest goal kickers could miss him as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact we're not getting enough opportunities of the tools, which is in this game again. Dan Houston kicks 3, Rioli kicks 3, HORNE-FRANCIS kicks 2. It's great getting those guys kicking goals. I think Rioli kicked 3, didn't he? I had that in my notes, but I could be wrong. But yeah, a lot of our goals are coming, and I love
Rioli with 3.
yeah. I had HORNE-FRANCIS being this goal kicking midfielder, and we've said I think he's still averaging almost a goal a game. These are all good things, but you want that needs to be the kind of cherry on top of the sundae, right? And I think that was my biggest frustration out of obviously the abject gameplay around the field as well at times on the weekend, and as you mentioned in the first quarter, just like too many individuals, and as I said, guys standing around the pack a little bit. To kind of back up your point about the individuals, there was always someone, and it's not like I actually thought someone was like, it's not like they weren't putting in a shift. That's not what I'm trying to say. They were just like, there was a mismanagement of planning, and someone was always expecting someone else to be doing that work. And
There's a disconnect.
yeah, and so they were playing reactively rather than proactively. When you add that on to obviously the first half and the first quarter in particular, we weren't even getting that many inside 50, so I couldn't fault the forward line too much there. But then once we started bringing back the inside 50 number, at the end of the game, it ended up 48-48. It was tied up, which after starting 4 versus 17 is a pretty good result, and speaks to how we worked our way back into the game. But when we started working our way back into the game, and then we're getting the inside 50s, and then it was just nothing much was coming of them. It just really made me frustrated with so there was a lot of things to. Really, my point being, I just wanted to touch on a lot of those frustrations that a lot of people put out in social media. Is we agree with them, we just sometimes don't agree with how you execute your criticisms. But there is a lot of issues that the club needs to work on. But as we've touched on, the competition's pretty even. With somehow the fact that we went into the last quarter with, if we win this, we jump up to what ended up being 4th. If we lose this, we're out of the 8. Like Carlton's out of the 8 right now. Like as some Collingwood fans on social media, there was a video going around of Collingwood fans singing "Carlton's out of the 8" or something like that. Like,
wow, that's real shithousery.
But yeah, it shows how wild the competition is this year. And GWS looked like they couldn't lose a game a month ago, and now they're below us. And So I don't know if you've got anything else to touch on as far as the negative side of the game, but yeah, I think it is such an interesting result to talk about in the sense of what
Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just such an interesting game. I still don't, I probably still don't truly have my head around it, to be fair.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, my notes were
it's
difficult to do
nuts.
this week because it was hard to coalesce into a structured form because it is
Yeah,
such a
just
game of,
yeah.
I was going to say two halves, or really three quarters and one
It
quarter.
wasn't even. Yeah, yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
like I said to you, we were chatting over the last couple of days, and I said to you, like, given the wet weather that
Hmm.
ultimately came across, the second and third quarters, like, you can excuse you know, some of the arm wrestle because of the wet weather. I think I said wet weather shenanigans to you,
Hmm.
but the fact that how the first quarter ended, everything from that point on compounded. Every contest lost, every time that, we love how Horne-Francis takes the game on, and we love how Butters likes to zip and like dash in and out of space
Hmm.
to try and find something. And, you know, but they were getting caught, or you go and Butters just, you got a teammate there, fucking
Yeah,
hand it off.
Butter's
Like,
got that
use
holding
your
the ball early.
teammates.
That yeah,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
like a
Oh,
first.
and
That was an early sign to me. I was like, oh, is this going to be one of those games that's like doesn't quite go our way for a while? Because
yeah,
when
and
and
you,
Butters immediately threw his head, he just went, oh no, like you could just tell that
yeah,
because he knows that he can
yeah.
get through that, and
But
yeah.
and you were saying about Harley Reid when he did his goal of the year nomination. I think it was the three bounces and his cerebral, just awareness of the competition at the moment, and seeing Zach get done running too far, and you're just like, that was always going to happen. Like the
Hmm.
day after the whole Crows and Magpies, uh how that game ended.
Hmm.
And it's just those little moments that otherwise you're just like, oh fuck, that's disappointing. But oh well, yeah, get on with the game. But yeah,
Hmm.
every umpiring decision, whether right or wrong, and look,
It was
we definitely
inconsistent on the
just
weekend. It was
we
weird. Like the.
definitely got the Sunday team.
Mhm.
Like it was definitely a Sunday game from an umpiring perspective. There was a lot of just like it was just an interesting performance. There's moments of very soft free
Mhm.
kicks. But then, as well as that, is a lot of tackles to the ground were being left very, very long for
Mhm.
something to happen when everyone's just crying out for the umpires just to go, he's been tackled to the ground. It hasn't come out in 3 seconds. Just fucking blow the whistle. And again, that's adding to the frustration. It's all compounding and compounding.
Mhm.
And then we find ourselves 41 points down. But most of that is because of the last 12 minutes of the first quarter. Had that
Yeah.
not happened, like you're going, oh, this is a bit of a frustrating arm wrestle, but you're like, oh, we'll probably win anyway. Like,
Yeah. The first 10, 15 minutes,
um,
I was felt like those St Kilda and those some of those games that we play where we just go, all right, we'll start
yeah,
slow,
you're
but
just like, oh, wait for this to
yeah.
pass.
I remember what was it Carlton back in towards the end of 2021 when we were down by
Yeah,
21 points to Carlton and ended up beating them by
in
100.
the
Like,
first quarter.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And like, so we kicked like 18, 19 goals in a row at one
it's
point. So,
yeah,
like,
and
that's
it
what I
is
was kind
the
of hoping for.
yeah.
Well, not that I expected that to happen, but I thought,
No,
when we start slow, I go, all right, here we go again. But
be
we'll
like,
fuck,
oh, they've come out plucky. Like,
yeah, but we'll get
we'll
there
swap that
eventually.
aside.
But then it just didn't happen.
Yeah,
And it compound, and as you said, it compounded very quickly to the point that at the end of the first quarter, I'm already going, oh, we've already got ourselves in a significant hole here, which it was.
hole. Yeah,
And I think that Fox Footy Town, I should have written it down. They were talking a few times about quarter time deficits, and even 3 quarter time. I don't think a team's come back from more than 12 points down at 3 quarter time this year up until we did
this
on the
year.
weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah. And even the quarter time deficit, I think, was one that no team had come back from. If a team was down by 4 or 5 goals or almost 5 goals as it was at quarter time, teams hadn't come back from that this year either. Um, maybe Collingwood aside against us, but we weren't quite that far ahead at quarter time either. So I think that's what there was some commentary about that. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah, I know what you're talking
or I
about.
dreamed it.
Yeah.
Either or.
No, it was definitely commented on.
Yeah, so there was a lot of the hole that we put ourselves in. Just that's my point. It was quite significant. Um, so yeah, it's but to come, I think that's what is so interesting about talking about this game is that because then we have to go. Well, we had to get braver, and I think a few of the players at three-quarter time just said they've come out and said since it's just like we're like, well, we might as well have a crack at winning this, and if we lose by 30 or 40 or 50, I think I can't remember if it was Darcy Bean Jones or someone else who said if we lose
Yeah,
by
I
this
think he
much,
said 60 in the post match and then
okay,
50 on the rush hour.
rush hour,
Is that
yeah,
the
because
Triple M show?
yeah, because he was talking about how he hadn't been contacted by Adelaide United yet.
Adelaide United, yeah.
Which, geez, Adelaide United could use someone for you to put the ball in the back of the net. So, but yeah, it's yeah. He basically said that they kind of, and it's frustrating because you sit there and go, well, we need to marry up that, and I've said this at times before, and you and I have talked about it. Is like the gap between good and bad for
Good and bad, yeah.
premiership teams is usually smaller than what we're at right now. So we need to fix that up. And you sit there and go, well, and maybe the layman's might sit there and think, well, why can't we do that from the start? And the footy, the modern game especially, is a game of tactics and as a chessboard, and you can't go hell for leather from the start and manage game out as we saw last week a little bit too. But we're able to, and again last week we talked about it. There was a little bit of some things that happened at the end of the third quarter. It was just like, who the fuck? These things just unfortunately sometimes things can happen out of your control a little bit, but. The fact that we were able to go in at three-quarter time, I think, is and make that little switch in attitude and is a thing to be commended as well. Yes, it doesn't. This is the thing I'm trying to get to is like it doesn't preclude you from. You can talk about both things. Yes, the first quarter in particular, that 10-minute period you're talking about, bad. The way we tried to get back into it for a while, again, execution was bad. Skills were a little bit off. Just weren't quite clicking. But if you can find a way to come back from 41 points down, as it was late in the third quarter, that's got to be equally commended. And even though it took until very late and just some fortuitous, I don't think you like 2 goals in 25 seconds just doesn't happen. That just doesn't fucking happen.
No, yeah. And Jared Whaley has been reveling in the fact that it didn't come down to a kick after the siren, which generally in that situation it probably would, but it
as soon as it
down to two kicks in under 35 seconds.
Yeah, I mean even when that ball came in from the Butters clearance, incredible clearance by the way. Both Will and Drew kind of reading off of the Lloyd Meek tap and coming down to the and getting and knowing where, and that was kind of clearly quite a good set play at the kind of like this is what Butters starting his run and being available out in the open on the outside to be able to take the Drew handball and then just get it forward to the hot spot. But I'm sitting there going, someone's got to mark it. Like that's our only hope here. I don't, not that I don't expect us to crumb and rove, and because Rioli's been reasonable this year at doing that at times when the ball comes to ground if he gets a bit of space. But just with the time on the clock, you're just not expecting a ground ball or not even a get really. Soccer, like it's just it's the most improbable. It is the most improbable of finishes, and as much as we made our own bad luck in the first half, in the first quarter in particular, and everything with some poor skills and everything like that, when we up the ante, that's a positive sign as to what this side has to do, and just I can't stop saying that you've got to enjoy this kind of stuff. You can enjoy this while criticizing as well. And that's what like a lot of people, because I had some people, there was some, Twitter comments going, oh, Ken's acting like a tit after the game. And again, appreciate the comments. And
so basically like what
I did reply
37,000 people can be at the absolute end of their wits just in elation, and one person, because he's a football coach, can't enjoy it. I don't get that criticism whatsoever. On top of the criticism that came off the back of the Geelong win, it again is part of these. I just if you've got a vendetta, you got a vendetta, but you also have to check yourself for being being a bit daft. Like
Hmm.
a guy can enjoy a victory, a hard fought win. If you've ever played fucking sport before at any level, you know when you've gotten out of jail and it
Hmm.
happens, you're allowed to fucking enjoy it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, for all the reasons that we've spoken about, and you said that we could be ninth right now, but we're third. Whether you think we deserve it or not, ball don't lie. Like,
Literally
you
just
know,
in my head thinking that, and then yeah, you said it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure Melbourne would have loved to fucking skim over the line, and I'm sure Carlton would have liked their third quarter back against Sydney, but
Hmm.
scoreboard is the scoreboard. Yeah, like, and we're all allowed to. Everyone's allowed to enjoy it
Yeah.
if they want to. Yeah, because like,
And we know
how
he's a
can you
member.
not?
Yeah.
How can you not enjoy it? Like, get around Josh Sin, and Josh Sin's got fucking his shoulder hanging off, and Ken's just fucking chucked the arm around him. Like, but like, and this is the thing. Like, this is, yeah, we're talking about Jurgen Klopp, like from
Hmm.
Liverpool, just going out. Like, I don't. There's some pretty placid fucking coaches out there. Like, I like a coach to have emotion.
Hmm.
Like, everyone would probably like Ken to be a bit more emotional sometimes in press conferences, but that's only to please you as the individual. Like,
Hmm.
he's got a culture to preserve, whether you like that culture or not, and whether you think it'll net success or not, to your expectations. Like, yeah, you can't Malcolm Blight it anymore and try to say that someone's had a shit game, and like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's tiresome, some of these conversations. Like, a coach
Yeah.
can't appreciate a miraculous victory.
Hmm.
Like, it's bullshit.
Especially when he's a player, he is a player's coach, and whether you like that or not, that's part of what he has that relationship with the players. And every time you see these celebrations at the end of close games, players are often coming up to him for a hug and a high five too. Like, it's not like that
Yeah,
he's just out on the own. Like, there was that video of Tom Brady a
yeah.
few years ago
It's
looking
not
for a
like he
hug.
ripped his shirt off and fucking ran the length of the field.
Yeah, he's just doing a fist
Like,
bump
he's
and
doing a few fucking fist pumps like we all were.
mhm. Yeah, and if Darcy Byrne-Jones can celebrate and wheel away like he's and jump into the arms of Jace Burgoyne and have the absolute limbs that they were, then the coach that's set them on the and yes, you can talk about the first quarter as much as you want about the path that they've set on then, but then the path that everyone was on the same page going into that fourth, as much as the page was scribbly and unlegible for a few quarters there. That fourth quarter was pretty executed to perfection. Beyond some, again, the forward line issues and some a few missed kicks, but we weren't actually that. I don't A little bit of inaccuracy and a few goals missed, but close ones. Like I don't. I'm trying to think of. I think
There was
Marshall
a lot of
missed.
snaps out of packs and things like that,
Yeah,
particularly late. Like, I was looking at after that Willie Rioli goal, if I can just go back to it.
mm.
Yeah, they kicked it behind, and then was it one, two, three,
That was a poster
four,
as well. That was very close to probably knocking the game on the head there.
sealing the deal? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But yeah, like, I thought our set shot goal kicking, yeah, was pretty good on
yeah. I think
the
Marshall
day.
missed one earlier in the game, which was kind of one of those ones that you just can't tell. Marshall's just not quite there
Yeah,
yet
he
with it.
kicked one,
Whether
and he
kicked
missed
it,
one. I think
kicked
he
one.
kicked the first one.
There was yeah. I can't remember
That
which way it went, but I remember he kicked
that was
one
in
and
the
then
second quarter, I think.
yeah, and then he missed one, and I was just like, oh, he probably if he's in that
He got
form of
too
two
close
years.
to the man on the mark.
That's
And
yeah. If he's in that
yeah.
form of 2 years ago, he's probably knocking that one through. But
Yeah.
beyond that, it wasn't. There was a couple of rush behinds, and this is actually the rare game that we exceeded our expected score, by the way, by about 10 points.
This was a real wow. And that's and
Actually, I think
like
I've got it in my notes.
I was thinking about expected score, because obviously Blake Hardwick had a fucking blinder of a first quarter, but he
Mm,
kicked 3 of those goals from 50 meters.
yeah,
And I'd love to see expected score on those 3 kicks, but he nailed them.
I think
Like,
his
credit to him.
I think his expected score was a lot because I think I didn't actually note it down. I should have just for fun, but yeah, his expected score was a lot less than what his output was.
Yeah.
Like
When you're kicking from 50,
individually, yeah,
yeah,
um,
like
yeah. Hawthorn's
nuts.
Hawthorn's expected score was 78.6 and they scored 78. And obviously, the rush behind gets them to 79. Um, our expected score was 68.9, so close to 69. Anyway, I am a 36-year-old immature man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, that's almost 10 points below what our expected score was, which was 78, and then add the 2 rush behinds that gets us to the 80 that got us the win. So yeah, we lose the expected score by, it's 10 points is a significant margin on that.
It's good to be on
And
the other side.
it is, yeah, yeah. And uh, I did think up until I would have liked to see, and I should have gone back and actually seen what the expected score graph was up until probably halftime, three-quarter time. Felt very similar to the Crows game where we just weren't getting those shots up close enough for a while there.
Yeah.
We just couldn't, and that's again the forward line thing. But yeah, we just overpowered them in that last quarter. And I guess we'll get into stats and stuff later, but we should just talk about the likes of Butter. Like Butters doesn't always sometimes can float. He doesn't float in and out of games too much. Sometimes it's just the game doesn't go away that he can influence as well. But when he turns it on like he can, that was an all-time last quarter. It is against Hawthorn in round 10, so it's not going to, some people may not be. I think it'll be talked about for a long time. Particularly the game is going to be a memorable one for a long time with the improbable finish.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Butters is a part of that storyline, being involved in the play as well. It's a very significant part of that, getting a penetrating kick forward from adjacent to the center circle, getting it into probably 30 meters out from goal as it was. So that's an incredible last quarter. It's kind of the last quarter that makes you sit there and go, that is the comparisons to Gary Ablett Jr. that some have made over the years. I'm never going to say he's going to be, Gary Ablett Jr. was a special talent, but that you can see why the comparison is there when a bloke like Butters can go out there, and I did note down his fourth quarter stats in particular. 97% time on ground. I think the guys I can't remember if it was on the couch or first crack. I watched both of those ones. They talked about the fact he went off for basically 40 seconds to a minute at one point in the fourth quarter just to get a quick spell, but he didn't. He didn't do the. Sometimes they go off for 4 or 5 minutes at a time in that middle period. He didn't do that. So that's first point. Beyond the numbers are fantastic, but I think I've talked about it before. Time on ground is a stat that I find intriguing based on your output because if you can project that kind of output while you're not going off for your not doing your pit stop to get your gas in the tank or whatever, and you're still putting that kind of output. And, right up until the last 20 seconds, as we saw, 17 disposals, 7 contested, 5 clearances. That's over half of his output for the game in one quarter, which again speaks to the disappointing nature of early periods of the game. But
it's just amazing.
If you're gonna have a go at winning the game and guys can stand up like that, that is also, again, you've got to commend it. It's incredible. How did it look by the way, from your viewpoint? Because obviously TV is a different view. But at the ground,
I had no idea. I'll be honest. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
The last quarter was so chaotic and so emotion filled that it wasn't until we were listening to the radio, like on the way home, that, or one of my brothers said in the car about how many disposals. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I was just oblivious to it all. Obviously, like you're seeing the passages of play open up, but it just didn't register to me how often he was actually possessing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And but then you reflect on it, and like you're watching the replay, and then you're watching or listening to the analysis shows and stuff like that on TV and radio, and he's been given his due plaudits for all the right reasons. Players who just don't accept that the game is lost, like the winners in the game, and he's definitely one of them. And it's warming to again have that type of player like on our list. A bit like what I said when he didn't get out of jail against Freo, but he didn't get suspended, and they were like, oh, they're protecting the Brown line. It's kind of good to have a player that's so kind of beloved across the whole competition, which is hard outside of Victoria to have those types of players being spoken about in that light. And you just watch it back and you just go for all and I mentioned some frustrations I had with him earlier in the game, and yeah, it just didn't give up, and he kind of put the team on his back. And
Mhm.
some people are kind of, yeah, some people are saying, oh, he's done fantastic with the captaincy, and you know, maybe that's why he should be captain. I've seen very
Yeah,
minimally, but he does that anyway. Like
yeah,
whether Connor Rosie's there or not, he's still putting in that type of effort. Perhaps he's not getting 17 disposals if Rosie's there, but his impact is still felt.
hmm
And yeah, just amazing, just
yeah,
amazing to have players on our team that do this kind of record breaking or close to
hmm
moments, the
yeah, and get talked about with such the
performances.
plaudits that they have. I think it was I can't remember if it was Damien Barrett or one of those guys just saying how much of a like all time um, Yartapuulti quarter, like just a performance it was, just a incredible individual performance that kind of transcends normality in
Yeah,
and as such is getting the plaudits from a very, we talk about it a lot, maybe not on the podcast so much this year, but at times when it comes up, the very Victorian centric media. So to break through that, and he's doing that a lot too because he is just such a talent in that sense. He's both incredible to watch just aesthetically, but then his output matches the. It's not like he's a mercurial talent that does these little bits here and there, but then goes missing for an entire game or anything like that. Even if he's not getting the ball at some points in the game, he'll find a way to find it again. Um, so yeah, that was just incredible. And he typical was that Butters game. he and he's ended up with 2 fines out of the game, which depending on taking an early
yeah,
player, he's got $13,000 worth of fines. Which if he takes the early play, it'll drop it down to doing quick math right
8 or
now.
something.
Yeah, 8, just a touch over 8, I think, or maybe around 8. Yeah.
Yeah,
But just getting into the melee with Jack Ginnivan, who just continues to, yeah,
pest.
just a fucking pest. And like he kicks that goal in the third quarter, I think, out of and just and one of those good
Does a bit of a
opportunistic,
Spider-Man.
yeah. But geez, there's like entire quarters there. You're just like, oh, wait, Ginnivan's out there. Like, so, he's such a
Yeah.
he's
Well,
one
I
of
thought
those.
it was funny as well. In one of the football shows, they highlighted that late in the fourth quarter, when all they needed was that one goal,
Yep.
where he got possession a few times, and instead of actually surging it forward to the aid of his teammates, he actually went in and tried to. They didn't say tried to draw a free kick. They said
Mhm.
he, led with the head and wanted to take the ball to ground. They were framing it in a to waste time kind of thing, but
Mm.
everyone can kind of see what he was really trying to do. Um, Win a free kick and then
And
surge it
then yeah,
forward.
take some
But it
time
didn't
off the clock
happen. The
and yeah.
umpire didn't fall for it. So it kept us in the contest, which I thought was funny.
And there was one
Um,
particular, there was a Jace Burgoyne tackle in the center square where you can on Ginnivan, where you can tell Ginnivan's trying to drop the shoulders, and Burgoyne just kind of drops with, and it's just
yeah,
the most perfectly executed tackle that Burgoyne did on him there. Yeah, watch it if it's in the fourth quarter sometime. I think earlier on in the quarter, but yeah, I just was like, geez, Burgoyne's being so young, I kind of looked at it and went, geez, that's the new generation of player that's being taught a slightly like a
used to it. Yeah,
yeah, they've grown up with a bit more of an understanding of what the modern tackling technique needs to be, both in I think we even talked about it a few weeks ago where he didn't get reward for a tackle in the Crows game, I think it was, and I think one of the commentators noted that, or someone noted it on Twitter or something. I can't remember what it was, but that he tackled someone, didn't take him to ground. They dropped the ball and got away with what should have been a hold
yeah,
in the ball.
McHenry, I think it was, or
Yeah.
Lockie
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Well, I think I feel like McHenry might be right, but I could just be
Yeah.
being like, oh yeah, Jamie said it, so it sounds right. Which it
I am
probably
not
is
right
because
all the time.
you're right most of the time though. So yeah, like between that and then I see this
That's what
one.
Lucy says. To her chagrin.
I thought it's usually the other way around, isn't it? But yeah, it's and then watching that that Burgoyne tackle on Ginnivan, I just thought he's really got a handle on, and he tackles quite well for his size because he looks and he's probably just a little bit more
He's a
muscle bound.
tough unit.
Yeah,
He's a very tough
considering
unit.
he just kind of has that lanky look, which is just young players sometimes do. You look at his Uncle Sean when you watch earlier Port Adelaide highlights when Sean's running around those first couple of years, which sometimes just the cut of the jerseys Guernseys didn't make. Sometimes made people look a little bit
flattering either.
Yeah, because they're not. Those early 2000 Guernseys were still like a little bit loose, particularly on the but yeah, Jace's his tackling technique there was really good, and in a situation where the way Ginnivan plays, 90% of the time you'd think he's. I mean, they do try to. There's been big noise made about how umpires are noticing him and he's not getting enough, and then when there's a big stink, then he starts getting more. Burgoyne didn't even make it an issue. He just tackled him correctly, and you could see his arm was trying to go up onto the shot, but like Burgoyne just kind of locked in.
Wasn't going to happen. Not today.
Yeah, maybe any other day, but not today. Not on my watch," said young Jace, and what was another pretty good game for him. I wanted to touch on something this is really, really fascinating. Have you seen the news today about the 19 seconds that Port got? I don't know if you've.
I saw it last night.
Oh, okay, so I've only seen it.
John Ralph was on the couch.
Right, that is when it came up, yeah. What's fascinating to me is I actually had a note in my notes from the game about timekeeping, and I've never thought about it this much before, and it's actually from the opposite standpoint. And it came from my anxiety at the end of the game when Rioli kicked that goal, the goal, 26, 25 seconds to go. The goal, the ball goes through the goal about with 25, 26 seconds on the clock, I think. The clock, there's a lot of leaking time that I noticed at that time. I was like 3 or 4 seconds that I thought that the ball that got taken off the clock before they paused the time. And so I was having an issue with the timekeeping as far as I was like, oh, there's a few more seconds gone. Because I was thinking already we need to get the ball back. I would have 30 seconds on the clock. And then because then it came out after the game, people were saying, oh, they won it with 1 second to go, 3 seconds to go, whatever it might have been with what time that Darcy Byrne-Jones kicks the goal. But when I was doing,
and then Channel 7 had that we'd led for like 26 seconds or something.
Yeah, and then
where'd that come from?
Yeah, and then another one. I think I saw another one was 50 seconds, and then when Darcy Byrne, because I went back, I showed you that graphic, and I'll put this graphic up. I tried to do a nice little artistic design of our winning goal and the play that led to it. So I was watching back the play a lot to see what kind of how the play played out and where the times happened. And with 8 seconds to go is when Darcy Byrne-Jones strikes that ball, and when it crosses the goal line, it crosses the goal line at 8 seconds, turning into 7 seconds, and then which at that point, and then you just hoping the time does tick off. But I thought it was interesting after the Rioli goal, after our goal, after the Darcy Byrne-Jones goal, about 3 seconds comes off the clock before they actually stop the time. And if you look at where the ball's crossing the goal line, there's 3 seconds every time. And that was something I just at first thought I've really had since I've ever actually thought about it. Timekeeping in the AFL comes up occasionally. The famous, was it Freo and St Kilda down in Tassie years ago?
Yeah, wow.
But it's not something I've thought about too much. So then for this 19 seconds thing to come up, and I went back and watched that today and thought, oh yeah, no, that I don't. But then it is ultimately the umpires, whether the umpires did the right thing, but they do have control of the clock, and whether there was a reason that they didn't call the time on there. But I just thought it was interesting. I had the note. It's literally in my notes, like timekeeping AFL, interesting. Like I was just ruminating on it after the game. So I think that's a mountain out of a molehill for one thing.
Yeah.
Which I assume you're probably in agreement with.
Really?
Yeah, because it's just like timekeeping in the AFL is just not. And that was my point to bring up those couple of goals at the end, because more to the point with the Rioli one is as soon as he kicked goal and I saw it was goal and I saw the time. I even sat there and said to myself, I was like, "Time, stop the clock, stop the clock." Like I was thinking that at the time. I was like, the ball has gone through the posts. Like you need to so the AFL is like leaking. There's leaking seconds all the time in a game. So if we've gotten a little bit of a benefit, and I'm sure if they've picked up on this week, I'm sure this shit's happened all the time with free kicks. Like time,
Oh,
like
that's what my thought was.
it would just happen
Yeah,
all the time. Yeah, because
yeah.
yeah, and it's just one of those things that's been noticed because it was a close game and someone's picked up on it. And my te- my thing with these kind of situations is if no one's talked about it up until John Ralph brings it up on the couch, and that was over a day later, and no one else has thought about it at all. Coaches from either side, nothing's brought up. Then it's not actually a big deal. Like it's just AFL media guys picked up on something that because the AFL ticked off on it or whatever, and then he's picked up on it and like, oh, this will be a fun news story to come out. And now it's like the advertisers running with it, Fox Footy's running with it, everyone's running with it.
I think it's more journos looking after journos really than creating storylines. Because I'd love to know how often that happens in every other fucking game of AFL football that goes unnoticed. And like you said, the umpire could have legitimately been concerned about something.
Yeah, he might have been watching something else that was going on and
called on time on and whatnot. But it's real whataboutism, like, trying to predict a parallel universe where he does call time on earlier. And I don't know if it was you or someone else, but yeah, we could have kicked the 2 goals even quicker than that, or what?
Yeah.
Or was it the Rioli? What was the goal that they were focusing on in that? I can't actually remember.
It was 8 minutes ago. It was Darcy Byrne-Jones when he gets the free kick.
Yeah. That's made it even more ridiculous. Yeah. Like you have to. How does that? Oh man. Oh Jesus. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, it wasn't even the Rioli one.
Molehill.
Yeah,
like
I just wanted to bring
effect could have just unfolded, and we could have maybe even kicked an extra goal. Who knows? For whatever reason.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but
because our coaches do, the signs that go up and all that stuff that's modern footy now. Like they work on it based on what times on the official clock. So all that would have changed. Like it's butterfly fleck, sliding doors, whatever you want to call it. These things. Yeah, it's even when you look back at the Crows game last year, everyone was like, "Oh, we'll give them the 4 points." It's like, well, no, there was still going to be a minute on the clock. If you'd been given the goal, then you need to let the last minute play out as well. Like these things, you can't just. So, the butterfly effect of if they got those 19 seconds, it doesn't mean automatically that Port are going to lose because then
all
the events that happen after that are going to be slightly changed as well. So, and again, as I said, I
watched time travel movies.
Yeah.
Time's
I mean, just watch Back to the Future. Like he was almost gonna vanish, but then he played a song and it was all good. But I thought it was and again, I had the note to talk about it just and it was only going to be a little thing. I was just going to be like, this was my anxiety on the night. It was like Rioli's goal goes through and then 3 seconds come off the clock, and I was like, that's going to be the 3 seconds that we lose the game for. And then the fact that there's a completely different story come out, and again, it's always been the way. Like I think without knowing exactly, I should have looked it up, but I assume it comes down to when the umpire says all clear is when they stop the clock. I don't know why those 3 seconds leak off, but I noticed it on both of our last goals that you just get a couple of seconds leak off after the ball goes through the big stick. So,
and
AFL is just a sport that just is kind of. It's a lot more like it is, you've got 30 to 33 minute quarters and time is a flat circle and all that stuff. And you've just got to get it whatever the official time is. And the players on the field don't actually even know. In a lot of sports, NBA, NFL, some of those sports where time is, they stop the clock and they reset the clock.
Reset the clock.
Hockey as well. I remember me and Andrea at a Boston Bruins LA Kings game years ago where the Kings scored a goal with 0.9 seconds to go, and they have it down to the frame when you look at the puck crossing the line. These sports over here, that are very time based and they have their rooms that they figure that stuff out. But AFL is just not that sport. So for it to be this thing that's come out this week is just I thought it was very funny and
comical.
But we're gonna get a bunch of. It's gonna be something that's gonna come up now. It's like some random dickhead's gonna be in the comments. It's like got like an egg as their profile picture and is clearly a Crows fan or something like that. It's going to be popping in and being like, oh, you're kissed on the dick. Remember what happened against Hawthorn? You got 19 seconds out of nowhere. So it's like,
with 8
Yeah.
minutes left to go. Like, one thing I would say though is, yeah, the AFL fucking is terrible with its time management.
Yeah,
Like,
that was
it's
my point
again,
too. Is it's like time.
everyone, it's a professional league, believe it or not, but
Mhm.
like, and just some things that seem so simple to the layman like, um, like everyone knows that they should just reset the clock with a 666 warning.
Mhm.
Um, and like even the ends of quarters and ends of games, like it's actually Dwayne Russell who brought it up a while ago. I think it was last year, where when the time reaches zero, every ground has got an electric scoreboard. It should just go red. Like
Mhm.
basketball has the shot clock and the time clock, so everyone knows when the period has finished.
Mhm.
But yeah, we just make it hard, and it's like, oh, like, and then it just creates so much conjecture of like, oh, did he kick it before the umpire's whistle went off, or this, like that? Again, making it hard for umpires.
Mhm.
Like, it seems like an easy fix. That's when the quarter ends. Like, scoreboard's red.
Yeah.
Sorry, the advertising panels is what I meant. Um, around the ground, around the fence. Like, yeah, just make the AFL just loves to make life difficult for everyone.
Mhm. It's even the stuff that's happened with like goal line the goal technology and all that stuff is just like there is the technology out there to make it better. It's just like and cost is a thing, investment and all those things. But yeah, the AFL does seem to like to just be like, oh no, it's all good. But clearly with as modern technology gets better and stuff like that, you've got to kind of move with the times as well. And yes, we don't want to lose the traditional nature of the game, but there is just little things you can do that don't actually tangibly affect the game itself, but would make it a better experience and a lot more cut and dry, which I think is what your kind of point is. It's just like there's simple things you can do. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, did you have anything else game specific before we get into some of the? Because I'm sure some of the I know some stat stuff that I've got will come
We've
up when we talk about our votes. So
yeah, well, we've kind of dwelled on some negative aspects of the game, but I just
mhm.
wanted to know how many times you've watched the last 2 minutes of the game.
The YouTube's. I made Andrea watch it the next day because she, as I said, she went to bed and then woke up yelling at me when I was celebrating it. So when I put that video on alone on the TV on YouTube, like the AFL accounts last 2 minutes thing, I watched it once and then like she's going, wow, she was just like, I think she actually reacted to it in live because when the ball comes out and like Kane Farrell's kind of going the other direction and then he ends up getting that free kick, but there's like 45 seconds to
Yeah.
go and she just looks at what the scoreboard is and goes, no, you didn't. We didn't win this. Like, what are you telling? I'm like, no, no, we win this. And she's like, how? Because she hasn't even grown up with AFL being an American, but she got a very good understanding of it over the last decade of dealing with me, and she played a little bit as well, and she loves the game. So, she's just like, no, there's no way we won this. And yeah, and then as the 2 minutes goes on, and she sees it, and she's like, wow, that's incredible. But then I immediately just like looked at her and I was just like, all right, restarting it again. Like, so I watched it again then. And then that video I retweeted that was the Laces Out Twitter account, that random one that collates
Yes.
four different like. So I watched that probably 3 or 4 times. Which that's 4 times each as you're watching that with the different and Tim Geneva just cackling, which is like the
With a
perfect
crazy, yeah, Joker laugh almost.
which is sums up kind of how we were all feeling about it because it was just incredible. Yeah, so add that together with the YouTube video I watched a few times. Then, as I said, I was doing that graphic that I'll pop up on the socials and whatever. Probably tomorrow. Yeah. So watching that, watching just specific sequences. Like I watched that center bounce probably 10 to 12 times, getting
Yeah,
where
yeah, I've
the
lost count.
positioning of that
How
and how
many
that went. Like
times?
Meek out
Yeah.
to Willem Drew, and then I was getting the timestamps of when Drew handballed, when Butters kicked, when it goes to the contest with Marshall and Finlayson
Finlayson.
and was it Frost and Hardwick and Co back there, and then so I'd say it's 30 or 40 at this point, and that's um yeah, and that might be
I
actually
think
because the amount of times I went back and watched some of those like just 2 second snippets of it when I was doing that little graphic was just that was so yeah fair bit of time, and then I watched the replay again. So, and then even when I was watching the replay, I was skipping back and being like,
Yeah, just
doing it
going back
again.
to
So,
10 seconds. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
and
Yeah, I
that's
turned my TV like right up for the last play.
yeah,
Yeah, just because the TV didn't like the crowd didn't it was nowhere near loud enough on the telecast for
mm,
mine. Like it was like in the grounds was the stands were shaking.
yeah. You could
Like
see it in the
when
camera. The camera angles did it justice because they show the crowd behind
you
the
could see the people behind, but the
yeah.
noise was far greater than what came across
Mm,
on TV. Um, I think it's maybe just a side note that like we did have to sub off Ollie.
mm.
Uh,
Yeah, I should
uh,
have brought up earlier. I had that in my notes, but I got away from it. But
um,
yeah.
yeah, obviously the heart thing is, a
Mm,
bit of a concern. I'm not too worried about it. No one else is worried about it at the club. But
mm,
the fact that he was subbed off early meant that we couldn't pull that lever for fresh legs late either.
And then Josh
Our
Sin
whole team,
goes down
yeah,
with
yeah.
4 5 minutes.
Mead and Marshall looked a bit proppy at
Yeah.
stages.
Yeah, Marshall's ankle at halftime, I think, was looking a little dodgy. So yeah.
So yeah, again, it's not like you just fall over the line. There's a lot of hard work that still has to go in to produce a result like that. And
Mm,
like, yeah, so the second quarter we kind of bridged the gap back a little bit. And then in the third quarter, I think they outscored us by a goal and it came
yeah,
back
it got
out. And
back
you
to
just
28 points at the end.
but at 41 points, you just like, for fuck's sake, like we need something because there's still plenty of time left in the third quarter. And um I can't remember who it was. Rioli. Of course it was.
Mm,
Rioli pegged one back, and then it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like it was a bit of a tussle after then. And it was like, absolutely, we just need one more fucking goal at least before 3/4 time for us to be any chance. Because, like you said earlier, and we all said, so frustrated because we know the capability of this team.
mm,
But even with that much time on the clock and whatnot, like we're all going, well, if you give us a sniff, like we're still fucking good enough. Like
yeah.
we just need to actually play as a team and show some fucking grunt.
Mm,
And so Willie kicks that goal to bring it back under 40 points. And then you're just sitting there and you're going, just please one more. Like, because we didn't we'd kicked when did we kick? We'd kicked back-to-back goals once in the set, and that was in the second quarter.
mm,
But every
yeah,
time we'd kicked a goal, they'd replied
mm,
apart from that. So it was just like, we need to chain some goals together if we're any shot at all. And then Houston gets that one through at the back end of the third quarter. And yeah, you go into 3/4 time and you're like, well, stranger things have happened.
mm,
We've got that margin, like, and in the modern game, like, you know, again, it was wet, but the torrential rain had passed.
yeah, the sun had
It
popped
wasn't
out.
torrential rain. That was an
Yeah.
over exaggeration. It
Mm,
like the shower had passed, is what I should have said. So you going, well, a lot of things have to go right, but that can absolutely happen. So
mm,
bang, hit the last quarter and see what happens.
yeah. And
So yeah, like the end of that third quarter, yeah, like Sam Mitchell said, the last 45 minutes
mm,
on the other side is, you look back and you go, what could they have done from their perspective? And yeah, like it's all included. Like what happened at the end of the game is fantastic. But it started at the end of the third quarter just by, and I can't actually remember like if it was hard fought or it would have been because the whole game was fucking going
mm,
against us at that point. But that, like, yeah, that started it off in a way that just kept us like thereabouts. And it's like, well, Hawthorn haven't, like, it seemed like they had killed us off in a traditional sense because, yeah,
mm,
it was a little bit wet, like 41 points. But then even at 3/4 time, if any team's like 5 goals up, you're probably thinking you're fairly safe. And like you said, no team has come back from even 2 goals down this year.
mm,
But you go, oh, well, we're Port Adelaide, like we're full of stars and we can turn it on if we want to.
yeah.
And yeah,
And
that's exactly what happened. And like again, like I said about Zach Butter's game, is a lot of feedback about Hawthorn was that they put the cue in the rack at 3/4 time. And again, me being oblivious, consumed by my own emotions, I didn't really pick up on that at the game either. Like I said before, Rioli's goal was 11 minutes into the quarter. So there's obviously a bit of like contest amongst that first 11 minutes. Like, it's not like we kicked. The first goal was obviously important, like you said earlier, but we still had to work for it. And then like, I just remember being at the game, and they asked Zach Butters, I think after the game, like, when did you know that? I think he was on Triple M. Like, when did you know? And I think he said when he noticed and they noticed that Hawthorn all of a sudden was starting to go wide and a bit safer with their possession. And we'd got the margin under or the 4-goal or thereabouts area. And there was still plenty of time left. And you're going, well, hang on. Like,
and we've got recent history in it last year with some of those Sydney comeback, Melbourne comeback. We've had those games where we've kicked 3 goals in 2 or 3 minutes sometimes.
Football, like just AFL football at the moment. Like, you can kick 2 goals in under a minute, like under 30 seconds. Like, you can kick, like, it was 4 goals.
Didn't realise it until the weekend, but
heaps of time. I did actually say, though, I think it was to my brother, and g'day, Aaron, because I know you'll be listening. I think I said it to him where it was like, oh, for fuck's sake, like, we're going to have a fantastic last quarter and we're going to come within a kick and still fucking lose this game. And for me, like, that attitude kind of compounded when there was a moment in time where the scoring shots became close. And then the scoring shots evened up, and then we actually overtook them for scoring shots. And I was like, oh, come on. Like, this just typifies like everything that we hate. Like, like, of course, we're going to come back. We're going to end up with more scoring shots than them. And we're going to just miss out after playing a fucking shit first quarter. And all of these emotions are running through your head. And then my dad listens to the radio at the game. And then, it's around 19 points, the margin, and he's going, oh, there's X amount of time left. And I was like, fuck, that's fucking heaps. And then we kicked the goal to get it under 3 goals, and
7 or 8 minutes. It was the it was the
DBJ goal.
The DBJ goal that everyone's talking about, the 19 seconds.
Was there 8 minutes or was there 7 minutes and 40 seconds? I'm not sure, but and then like it became a contest again after that DBJ goal for a while, and it's like, oh fucking hell, like they've done just enough. And then my old man speaks up again, and he's like, oh, there's still 3 minutes left. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean? Like, there's 3 minutes left. And because obviously there's the count up clock at the ground, but you kind of, after you go to the football enough, you take an educated guess of how long you think is left in the game, and you watch out for the signs being lifted. But with everything that was going on, like, I'm not looking at the bench like for the signs, and I'm just like, emotions are going everywhere. Like, it's hazy, like, contest after contest after contest. He's like, it's just there's 3 minutes left. Oh, that's cool. And then a bit more time elapsed, and it's like, oh, come on, like, and then Willie gets a free kick, and you go, oh well, geez, cool, take that. It was
definitely there as well.
After watching the replay. But one thing that, again, a bit of footy skepticism is like, because Hawthorn, from a Port supporter's point of view, particularly at the ground, was like, oh, they're getting a fucking ride, aren't they? Like, in the first half, and you go, oh, in true AFL fashion, we're going to start getting some catch-up frees in the second half. And at the time when Willie got that free, it's like, yep, cool, take that one. Even though, yes, it actually was there. I don't know what Amon's being put as a backman, but cool.
I think it was just throwing bodies back there, and then it was who was then.
I think it's by design. I think Sam Mitchell has actually shifted him.
Is he actually playing? Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess he was on the last line at the end there too. So.
yeah. And then so Willie gets a free kick, and
he goes the spiral off the side of the boot. Free kick. Which way does this go? It goes to Rioli. Now the clock stops at 33. You can see the free kick there clearly.
over the shoulder from Carl Amon.
When does the clock start? As soon as they give Rioli the footy. It should start now.
Going back on.
Rioli wastes no time. From 50 metres out. Rioli sends it on the way. He's kicked the goal. Rioli's kicked the goal. And they're 5 points down.
Did you know that Willie can kick 50 metres?
I don't think we've seen him. He just never operates from that point of the field very often, particularly marking, because if he's just often and the fact that he was rushed into it too.
When he passed it off in Geelong when he was 40 metres out, and I'm pretty sure he generally does. That might just give you a picture of a bit of selflessness of Willie, is if he does get it around 50, he tries to do the team thing by
he probably knows that his limitation is there, and it's going to take the perfect kick. And the irony is maybe the fact that he
accuracy, it was the perfect Willie kick. Like it just made it in. But like he's going back, and we're like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up! Like we need a mark, or you're going to have to roost this. And he goes straight back. He gets into his routine, and he kicks it on the 50-meter line, and it was like a fucking rocket. Again, the TV, the vision doesn't do it justice. It fucking went off his foot, and it landed in the crowd. Like it didn't just drop over the line. It went into the crowd, and
no one was jumping to the line.
Willie can kick that long. Like, and we're just going fucking like it's on. It's on. At that point in time, you're all going, please, what is going on right now?
Yeah, particularly you on the ground,
just
not having the clock in mind.
Are all coming back to me right now. You know, just stick with me and like apologize. You're not really getting a word in edgewise, but just the emotions of that last quarter, and like we've spent a fair bit of time on the shit aspects of that game, and there's a lot to learn, like we've said, but and then it goes back to the center, and it's like, you know, and then everyone who's listening to the radio, or they've quickly put on KO on their phone, and they're like, oh, there's 25 seconds or whatnot, 20 seconds left, and we're just going, fucking please get the clearance, and then like, and it happens like me working to Drew, he gets the best handball out to Butters. I think Butters' kick was a bit too high for my liking, but he gets it forward. Yeah,
you want it to be a little bit, just a slight less elevation in it, a little bit more penetration. But the fact it gets to a contest, and I mean, obviously, probably penetration or elevation, either way, the way our forward line was operating, we weren't probably going to get a mark. So even though that's what you want someone to go up and take that,
but even when it was in the air, like everyone's like, please mark.
Yeah,
and it's like, who's going to mark that? Like no one's going to mark that. There's a pack of like 6 players. Felt like 100 players.
I think it was 5. There. As I said, doing the graphic, I had to work out which each one was, which required. Required a lot of pausing.
See it.
A lot of pausing of the footage and comparing the face with the Hawthorn list on the website, because sometimes I couldn't see the number, so I had to double check. Based on facial recognition and Blake Hardwick's leg tattoos, basically. Something helped me.
The ball, ball spills out, and Hawthorn have 2 possessions.
That's incredible, isn't it?
And you're just like, just take the tackle. Like, was it D'Ambrosio?
It's D'Ambrosio that takes it, handballs it towards our goal, which has players flooding towards it, to Amon, who's just probably just like,
and Jace puts on the pressure. Jace Berg.
He does,
puts on the pressure. It kind of looks like D'Ambrosio gets the handball away, but there might have been a bit of interference.
I don't think it was the cleanest.
Yeah. And then he goes to Amon, and for whatever fucking reason, Amon tries to kick it, and credit to McEntee, he does not give up on that.
He's following the play the whole time and just recognizes the chance to tackle. Yeah,
lurking. He's just like a tiger, just stalking its prey, and he pounces on Amon and half tackles him, half knocks the ball out. It comes loose, and DBJ Ole Ole Ole. Like it was absolute pandemonium when you're going, we need a mark because there's fuck all time left, and for what it like because it's kind of hard because I sit on the east and that play was facing the western kind of stand. It was a bit hard to see, but you just like us sitting over in the east, you just see the ball there on the ground, and DBJ just comes past and just knocks it in.
He wins it down, drew the handball, butters out of midfield, need a mark, ball goes inside 50, who can take it? No one, off hands, D'Ambrosio, taps it backwards, they're under pressure, ball comes out, he kicked it! He kicked it! He kicked it! It's a miracle! He's stolen it! I've never seen anything like it! In your life! Can you believe what we've just seen?
And again, like from the vantage point, you don't appreciate where he's actually had to kick that from.
He's
in line with the behind post.
Yes, yeah.
Can you believe it, Timmy Ginnivan? Oh, I cannot believe it. There's 2 seconds. Go for percentage. Get another one. Unbelievable scenes here in Adelaide. I'm so excited. It's a miracle.
And
It's when you see that behind the goal view, you go, holy, because in live view, I was like, oh, he's just fucking knocked that through. But then when I saw it again, I was just like, that's Fernando Torres in 2009, just fucking, that sweet strike of the ball, and obviously very different hair, but
although the peak of his career in a red jersey.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that man, Fernando Torres. I can still remember that song word for word, by the way. But yeah, different hair.
As you can imagine, as soon as like my dad said, he didn't even see what had happened, and then all of a sudden everyone is absolutely going bananas. And
limbs.
You were there for the Motlop showdown, weren't you?
I was on the hill. Yeah, I saw it.
Oh yeah. Okay. For anyone who was there, and for anyone who wasn't, like when Motlop kicked that goal, the stands were literally shaking. That's how it felt. Like
the hill was pretty much shaking.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. Is just like people are just going bananas, like absolute bananas. I'm out of my chair. Peyton, my daughter, is like between my legs, but she's standing in front of like my seat, and she's just looking around like, what's everyone doing? And everyone, credit to her though, she she didn't get upset or anything like that. She was just kind of like, what's going on? Like,
that's
why
gonna be
is
like a
everyone
formative
making
memory.
so much noise. Yeah,
in like 10 years, you're gonna be like,
mine picked her up and she's getting cuddles, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like, honestly, what the fuck just happened? After like everyone was about to go like lynch the Port Adelaide Football Club Monday morning, to then being like the purest form of elation of a comeback win at the absolute death. The time clock wasn't even on the scoreboard on Channel 7. Like the AFL logo had already wrapped around like when DVJ kicked it. And like I'm turning around to people I see every second week, like, what the fuck just happened there? And yeah, I just just had to revel in that last quarter.
You have to enjoy those moments.
Purely amazing theater. Like football is sport is the great unwritten reality TV show. Like you do not know what is going to happen. You think you know what, and we as Port supporters thought we knew what was going to happen when we turned that TV on, or we went into Adelaide Oval on Sunday afternoon, and we thought that it was going to be a fairly leisurely Sunday afternoon, but it wasn't. It absolutely wasn't. But just the theater of it all, the emotion, like you mentioned earlier in the pod, off the top, like it's why we love sport. And like my brother, again, to bring him up, we were just both saying, like, you just want to go back in time and relive that moment, but not remember what is going to happen. Like you just take me back, like the Motlop goal as well.
Yeah.
Like just take me back to that snippet of time where you're going, we could do this, but are we going to? And then it happens right in front of you.
Yeah, as I said, we robbed them, right? It goes into the pantheon of just those incredible, like, it's particularly if we talk about the modern Port era, like And you're taken away like after the siren goals because while they bring about the same emotion, there's a little bit of a difference in those and how they metabolize within you because there's a little bit of anxiety, kind of like a penalty kick in soccer. Like you don't know, you know there's a kick coming, but whereas these kind of goals that win a game in the sense, like you said, the Motlop one. Even
chaos.
While there was more time on the clock, the Wanganeen one in 2004 against St Kilda in the prelim, just because it came from such an improbable. You're not expecting. I mean, Wanganeen was clearly capable and showed it in a lot of his career that the inhuman was what he made. Was normal for him. But yeah, there's just those goals that bring about that limbs, that ground shaking stuff. I was in the stand.
And you're hugging people that like you don't know, and like you're high fiving people, and
you're out of
voice is just absolutely hoarse.
Yeah,
like you've just smoked 10 packets of smokes. Like,
yeah.
That's what we live for as sports fans. Obviously, you'd prefer the comfortable win, but you'd also
if we come out of there,
prefer to win the close one rather than lose the close one.
Yeah, and as we talked about off the top as well, or near the top of the show, like there's teams that have lost games this year that they should have won. I think it's been brought up on a couple of podcasts this week when people have talked about the teams that are separating themselves, and how Sydney are probably the class of the competition at the moment. Their one loss was to Richmond, who just lost by 119 points with the exact same scoreline as 07.
Quickly move on from that.
I'm going to call an audible because you just eloquently just went through the 2 goals at the end so well. I think those are our 2 goal a week nominations, right? If you were first, I was going to choose either of us were going to choose.
Yeah,
DBJ.
we can cut to the chase there.
Yeah.
For the listeners, we've obviously spoken about this off air. I've written in my note, like my notes on my phone under goal of the week, I wrote, "Do we even do this?" ?
Yeah, James brought that up to me off air, and I was like, "We'll still do a video because it's just good for content, and then it'll give people a good opportunity to watch those 2 goals again." But I think I know before I even looked at who was going to go first, I was like, "Well, I'm going to pick one of the 2. It would just be who's first." And then I realized I was going to be first. I was like, DBJ, and then. But I think, as you spoke about the Rioli goal, very, very well there. It's a beautiful goal as well. So 2 goals that on any other week. I mean, I think that DBJ one's probably going to be a hard beat for goal of the year now. Like it separates itself so much.
Yeah, the emotion.
The drama. It's the drama plus the technique as well. Like it's actually a really fucking good. Well executed goal, unorthodox as it is. Soccer. Not that soccer goals are unusual.
He said it hit his shin as well, but it kind of just spins like a top, straight through the middle.
Hits the goal umpire, and the goal umpire even does this little cross leg thing. Like the goal umpire,
wait, hang on, you've kicked that? I was not ready.
At least the goal umpire is like, well, if it hits me and I'm here, then that's a goal. and even more incredible is the fact that there wasn't even anyone really, like Hardwick's the closest to it, and he's clearly not touching it. Like it's just there was no doubt about it either, which was what was beautiful about the celebration is you just knew immediately that's a goal.
And then the goal umpire went back to the center, and he's just gone the 2 fingers like bang.
Love it,
just to confirm everyone's elation.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, what a moment. And as we said, a new way to you and I have been, fans for years now. We're both in our 30s, and just to find a new way to enjoy a win in the most improbable fashion. Just recount. Shows that, doesn't matter what happens. Sports, as you said, the great unwritten theater and reality show of life. All right, we'll go back now. We've done goal of the week. Spotlight quickly. We'll try to rattle through because we've got some time to make up, but I get to go first on this one. My positive, just one that I was really, and I had this written down before he got injured. But Josh Sin, I've really enjoyed his couple of weeks, and obviously it's not one to watch exactly in the traditional sense because he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks, I think. 6 weeks maybe. The Port Adelaide fractured his collarbone, which I did have in my notes as well. I was a little bit dirty on Aaliyah. I actually put out a tweet on the night too. I said I love what Aaliyah does, but he sold him. He put that we call them hospital balls. Which that wasn't the traditional sense, because the hospital ball is when you just put it clearly into a spot that a player, like your intention was to put
Nice
it there.
and high.
But yeah, this one was just a missed kick, and Sin had to suddenly, because he should have just put it in front of him for Sin to lead onto, and with a bit of penetration, it's just a gimme, but it ends up in a contest that Sin like puts his body on the line to try to make a contest, but unfortunately crunches his collarbone. But his last week was, I was really impressed with him his first week in the side. This week wasn't anything spectacular. It was just like he being so young in his career, I thought he was really good. He had almost 300 meters gained, 14 disposals, so not a massive amount there, but 71% effective, which on a night that was, as you've already talked about, greasy conditions to start with, which I wasn't completely cognizant of watching on TV, but obviously the rain came in the second half as well. Just, yeah, I thought he is a net positive, and his pace off half back, again, it wasn't as noticeable this week as it was last week against Geelong. He had some real bursting runs, but it's just...
We actually got to see him like put a real running effort in, but then he went to bounce it and the ball kind of came loose a little bit. But he still away.
Yeah, he still gathered it. It just wasn't quite
or he punched it or something.
Yeah, it wasn't quite the Zach Butters, the incredible bouncing that he can do. But yeah, I've kind of just been enjoying his, and it's unlucky that he again has succumbed to an injury, as some people on Twitter have said. At least it's not what the injury issues he's been having in his early part of his career as a Port Adelaide player. That's not that. It's just one of those things that happens in footy where you get your shoulder crunched and you fracture your collarbone.
Yeah.
So, that was mine.
A bit of a compromising position. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my positive. Even though he's not going to be playing for a few weeks here, 6 weeks.
It's fair.
Yeah, had to just give him.
I think he's composed for the most part as well.
Yeah.
When he's had ball in hand, looks like he knows what he wants to do for the most part. For a guy under 10 games experience, I think it's his 5th game. And he seems to be in fairly good spirits. I
he was smiling, and he was smiling and celebrating.
At the game,
At the end, he's got it tucked in the like his arm like supported by the curled up part of his jersey, and he's like smiling, has his hugging moment with Kendall, and walks onto the field.
Goes with when we win, he goes up with the one arm that he does have. That's good, but even after he's gone off for scans, obviously, and he said, well, it's not a soft tissue injury, so that's a positive for me, and I guess he seems to be in a fairly decent headspace, albeit missing another chunk of football.
I think hopefully he knows that he's put in a good shift in that time, and he's definitely made it. Put his name into contention when he's fit. So
and now Lockie Jones is back at an opportune moment, or at the right time. My spotlight, I've actually picked Willie Rioli because I think
in contention.
His last couple of weeks in particular, and you mentioned that the forwards weren't really getting involved early, and like I've just watched the first half, and I thought, and even the commentators kind of said, "Oh, I'd love to get Willie more involved," because he only had like one possession the first quarter, or like most of the first half, and
as we said, they only had 4 inside 50s that first quarter.
What's that?
They only had 4 inside 50s in the first quarter and 15 up until halftime. So
in the modern game, forwards are playing a lot higher than ever before. So, they're around the ball, but it's a bit hard to, criticize a forward wholly and solely because they're not touching the ball when it's not really getting in your area. But I actually thought that his pressure around the football, much like last week, was pretty decent early, and he's a bit of a senior figure, so that's what you kind of expect. And then, like the second half, he was fantastic. He, in the end, was in and around a lot of things, and just putting that pressure on, showing a bit of seniority, and being there and thereabouts. And you mentioned that he's now leading our goal kicking, so it kind of shows where he's kind of built into this first 10 rounds, because I think early days it was like he hadn't started fantastically well. He seems to be getting into a zone now where he's kind of not taking shit from the opposition, and he's kicking goals, so good on him. Love his work, and I'm just a big Willie Rioli fan. I was really happy when he was
He's forever kind of the second part of the Jason Horne-Francis trade, which obviously was a very good trade for Horne-Francis alone. But yeah, Rioli's just a sneaky, really, I mean, not even sneaky, he's just that deal is just going to go down in history as one of the best deals we've done. For my looking more at the aspect of players that just needs a bit of work and to watch for what goes forward, just really disappointed. I mean, and again, I've talked about the forward-line structure already, so I'm not going to, it's caveated it somewhat with that I think that we're just not really doing a good job of figuring out how to get the tools and those big leading forwards into the game. And yes, the first half was bad in the inside 50s and all that stuff. But Georgiades, 4 disposals, no marks in a game like this against an opposition that you'd be hoping that your tall forwards would have a little bit of fun with, especially when they're trying to work him back into form a little bit. He's probably dropped off and gotten a bit quiet the last few weeks. Since and I said he's kicked 10 goals since he's come back, so he's had some bag moments, but you just considering his skill set and what he can do and being a dynamic kind of leading tool forward, like he's not like your power forward in the Charlie Dixon sense. He's got that little bit of athleticism and stuff. Just really disappointed he couldn't find a way to make a mark in the game. So, and literally not even get a mark. So yeah, just a stat line. He's right down the bottom of the stat sheet amongst the guys that got subbed in and subbed out. So that's when you're seeing Georgiades' name in that sense. It's just like, because I scrolled down, I was just like, where is he? And then because I was already thinking I'm going to put him in here, and then I wasn't expecting it to actually read that bad. So yeah, obviously love him. Like, he's an incredible player, and his skill set speaks for itself. But it's just we just need to find. And again, I caveat it with I think we just need to figure out the forward line structure a little bit more as it pertains to them, because there's some other things that are working okay, but yeah, that needs work. And just Georgiades is just the one that gets the pick of just because of that stat line and the eye test for it as well on the weekend.
Yeah, no, fair. Yeah, he had a down game, that's for sure. Can't shy away from that. And he is playing a bit higher. He's a bit all over the ground. I saw a few comments on social media about how he kind of seems to be a bit everywhere at the moment, but I think that's kind of by design a little bit. It's mutual, I think, between him and the coaches that he kind of wants to play a bit higher to utilize some of his speed and agility. But yeah, ultimately he's a forward and he needs to be doing forward things as well. So
yeah, and if you're going to play higher, then you need to get some hand on the ball as well, and which he didn't get either. So it's just nothing. Nothing paid off for him. Some of the delivery left him a bit wanting as well. Exactly. That's why I had that caveat in there.
Yeah, caveat. Yeah. So yeah, I found this a bit tough. There's probably some people are going, there's some obvious ones, but I think for any one thing that you can say about one person, and even the one that I've picked, you can offset it by another thing. But and this one's tough because it was a good last week, but it just kind of typifies his season. And that's Ryan Burton.
He was one of my short list but then I just went.
He's getting a bum rap this year. Old Berto.
Because I love
he just seems to be a bit of a yo-yo, and seems to be following the trend of kind of our season. Like when we lose, he looks bad. When we win, such as last week, like he played a fantastic game last week, but. A bit like the team as a whole, you want the difference between our best and worst to be closer, and you want the difference between his best and worst to be different. And yeah, again, some of my criticisms in the Collingwood game apply to this one just a bit. He's not soft. No footballer is soft. But just some efforts that could have been attacked with a bit more tenacity. And then there's one contest where it's a scramble. Willem Drew's at the bottom of it. Willem Drew, in my opinion, is clearly going to win the football, and he's going to pass it to someone. And I have no idea what Ryan Burton was looking at, or what he was doing, or what he was thinking. He was the clear outlet, and Willem Drew handballed it into his chest because he was off with the Fairies. And through the passage of play after that, it actually ended up in a Miles Bergman turnover, but the whole reason the ball was down that end was because of that contest. And
I'm
again, those things that compounded the first quarter, that was definitely one of them in the moment. And his name was Mud at that point in time. And yeah, it just, he needs to find a way to, smooth out the peaks and troughs, just flatten the curve.
Yeah,
if you
kind of like
will.
we're talking about with the team as a whole, like
exactly.
the gap between good and bad, just bring it back to closer. Because I've said at times, I think his skill set is, borderline all Australian level, but it's execution and mindset and application
Like,
to
he's
the
had
game.
9 disposals.
Yeah,
Going at 89%. Not hard when you only have that fewer disposals, but yeah.
I'm so glad you brought up
it's
that
it's
contest.
the yo-yo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as you said his name, I had it in my notes. Because I remember seeing that live and being like, what? And I think the commentators made a point to it, like, oh, I guess
He
Burton wasn't
ready.
expecting that one, but they kind of said it with the tone of like, how could you not?
He should have been.
Like,
Yeah.
Don't be around the fucking contest if you're not going to be expecting, because you've just got to be there watching the ball and being like, and especially as you said, it was kind of obvious that we were odds on to win the ball, so be ready for the ball to
When
come
Drew's
out.
down the bottom, of course you are.
Exactly. Yes. Willem things. Yeah, no, it's Burton's going to be. He could end up in the pot. He could be end up in the fucking positive in a couple of weeks again, just as you said, his yo-yo of the season.
Yeah.
So, all right, the Sweeney, you get to go first for the Sweeney this week. As I said, as we already touched on before, goal of the week came up in an unorthodox fashion and doesn't need to be touched on anymore. But yeah, Sweeney this week, you get to go first.
Yeah, well, my Sweeney for the week is unsurprisingly an event that happened in the last quarter, because the positives seem to happen in the last quarter. But
pretty much,
I've actually selected the moment where Jackson Mead is running forward towards 50, and the ball is out in open space, and I believe it was Sam Frost was coming from the side, and whoever got there, like if Jackson didn't go gung-ho towards the football, Frost could have easily, because Frost is a fast runner, could have easily got the ball and put some pressure on us going back the other way, but Mead didn't give up on the ball. He actually got a knock into the 50, and in the end, I believe it was a throw-in because Finlayson, it came off hands, and I think it was either a stoppage or a throw-in.
Plays on. Surely they've got to make a goal here. If they don't get one here, you think it's nearly over. Mead, a wonderful tap back into a dangerous position. Fumbles it over the line.
Such a great contest, wasn't that, by Mead? Frost come 30 metres off Dixon, and bang.
Brave from Frost.
Took the hit for his team then, Mead.
Yeah, really, really smart football.
Like a tackle stoppage or a throw-in. But yeah, it was just the fact that he didn't give up on the ball and outsized in the contest at the football. At the ground, everyone was appreciative of that effort. I don't know if through the chain of events it led to a score, but it was almost worthy. It was worthy of a score, that effort. So yeah, wanted to highlight that. Yeah. Hang on, just before you go though, I'm pretty sure in the commentary they gave plaudits to Sam Frost for not giving up on the ball either, and so the clip that you'll probably like,
Oh, did they? I thought that's actually top. That's top of my list too, because I thought I noticed that live and thought, geez, I had it written in my notes as I was taking notes on the night. Like, that's a Sweeney contender, because I think that epitomizes kind of everything that we want. Like the Sweeney Award is about is those little moments that a player puts his body on the line or does a little thing, the little 1%ers really.
Yeah.
That don't end up in
flashes of brilliance.
Yeah, and they don't end up in a real statistical moment, but it's Jackson Mead putting his body on the line, particularly as we talked about before. He's a player that's had some unorthodox injuries that were quite scary in his youthful part of his career, and but he still attacks the ball in such a way that it ended up in a forward 50 stoppage, which is as we play in a way that we want to lock the ball in there. So as you said, the sequence of play didn't end up in a goal, but I think that kind of pressure forward is what hindsight's always 20/20, but that overarching pressure that we were putting on is what ultimately ended up in a win. So that was going to be my top choice, but I do have a few others here. Honorable mention, I think the McEntee tackle for the goal is incredible, and
Yeah, that was in my thoughts.
Yeah, that was there, but I think
I just thought it was a bit too close to the
that
goal.
is tied into the goal. That's going to be
a perfect Sweeney. Yeah,
yeah, it's going to be in the
whole.
It's going to be in the highlights package anyway. Another one we'll mention, I've already brought up earlier. I thought the Burgoyne tackle on Ginnivan was really incredible as well, but it's a small moment, and I just wanted to touch on that. But Aaliyah, my pick's going to be Aaliyah chasing back Nick Watson in the fourth quarter.
I'm glad that you're bringing this up. Yeah.
Might be out through Meek. And Watson in a foot race here with Aaliyah. Watson hits the front. Aaliyah closes him down.
Thought he was like a big trap then. He's almost swallowed him.
Credit to Aaliyah, because looking at that foot race, you'd think Watson had just run off on him, but he
disappeared.
Got wheels.
He actually disappeared. I lost sight of him, little Watson.
And it's just one of those moments where you see Aaliyah's athleticism, because he is sneaky fast for his size. Because Nick Watson's chasing into the pocket, and Aaliyah just keeps pace with him, and actually because he's it's a little bit of game intelligence as well. He's just angled his run to keep him to be goal side of him, and as well as intercept him and just tackle him, and he kind of just, and the commentators BT and everyone's just going, he disappeared, he swallowed him, and they're just carrying on about because how Elliott's just tackled into just gone on top of him, and in a legal it's a very
Watson tried to draw a free.
He did,
Let's just put that out there, and the umpire thankfully didn't get sucked in. And the way it unfolded, it appeared that
And at the time, I wrote it down at the time. I was like, oh, that's a Sweeney, because it's I was thinking, oh, geez, I'm not going to have that many options.
Yeah, absolutely.
But ultimately, it's those little 1%ers like that one, as ultimately, if they'd given up on the play because I can't remember what the scoreline was at the time. We were going to be at least 2 goals down at that point because we didn't get those 2 goals until late. But it's those little
Ryan
efforts
Burton, not to shit on Ryan Burton, but if it's anyone else really, but you would think, tall player, medium to tall player, you're going, oh, this is a fucking goal. He's going to wheel around and just beat this guy, and then he's going to edge his way towards the goal square.
Yeah, because maybe
Aaliyah's pace for is high,
and maybe anyone else backs off a little bit and goes, all right, I'm going to let him gather the ball and try to but he just goes, I'm going to go with him and fucking just and not let him get it. And I think Watson just was probably a little bit, just was like, oh, fuck, he's right.
Wait, what?
He's right here. And this guy,
key suffice for a stoppage?
Key defenders don't do that. I had to put that one in there. So that'll be an interesting one on the vote then. It's going to be fun. All right, so we'll dive into Player of the Year votes, which I get to go first in this one. So it's interesting how, I know we've Yahtzee 3 times this year now. I don't know if we will this week, but we could. Anyway, my one vote, I've got Jace Burgoyne in there. Before I'll just say honorable mention, the one that I almost squeezed in there. And some people criticized him on the weekend, but I thought he actually had a good game. Travis Boak had 26 disposals, a lot of meters gained. His disposal efficiency was probably his one downside. I think he ran it just over 50%. But he was involved, and I thought for 35-year-old Travis Boak, I thought that almost got in there, but wasn't quite good enough. Jace Burgoyne, 23 disposals, 7 tackles, and as I've talked about, there was another tackle in the game as well, which I can't exactly remember enough to describe. But he just had some really good tackles that, again, defied his size. Again, tackling on Ginnivan. He cut off someone's handball with 4 minutes to go that he then dished out a handball to Aaliyah that I think spilled. But he's just involved in everything in key points in the game late on, which I'm really impressed with such a young player. And again, he's kind of defying his size a little bit and showing some tenacity that I guess we shouldn't be surprised being a Burgoyne. But really impressed with him. That's my one vote. Willie Rioli, I had to give 2 votes too. I think in a tight game like that's so tightly contested. As a forward, he's there's only 14 disposals. He had 4 tackles, 6 score involvements. Not like a bunch of the stats that the next 3 are going to have when I get into those votes. But to kick 3 goals in varying type, he kicked his small 4 goals. But that goal that you've eloquently described earlier when we were talking about the goals at the end of the game, that's clutch stuff. That's fucking that meme that went around when Robbie Gray kicked that goal against Carlton, where it's accelerated break, Robbie Gray, it's not like, it's not the winning goal, so it doesn't quite get that kind of like that highlight. But that's a clutch as fuck goal, and degree of difficulty on that one is quite significant. So really,
Yeah,
he
so
did
impressive.
when your small forward's getting 3 goals in a tight game like that, and one of them in a clutch fashion, that adds extra points for me. So yeah, had to give Willie Rioli 2 votes. Dan Houston gets 3 votes for me. 22 disposals, 10 tackles, 6 intercepts, 3 goals, obviously, which is a career high for him, and he almost had a 4th one there in the 4th quarter as well. 81%, and this is a significant thing for me. 26 pressure acts, which led the team, but when you're getting over 20 disposals and you're operating above 80% disposal efficiency, particularly in the conditions that you've talked about, I think that was really impressive as well. It's not like the highest disposal game by Houston. He can often get into the 25s to 30s pretty easily from his position at this point, but the ball use he had was really, really good, and obviously his pressure as well, with tackles and everything was just rounded out a really good game for him. And again, in a game that we were struggling to find goals at times, to get 3 from his position, and quite impressive fashion. Again, we're kind of like Farrell last week. Any other weeks, a couple of Houstons could have ended up in our goal of the week contenders, but obviously,
yeah, that's true.
4 votes, Zach Butters. 32, obviously, we've talked about it already. 32 disposals, but 17 in the 4th. 12 contested, 8 score involvements, 8 clearances, 545 meters gained. He had the over 20 pressure acts as well. Yeah, he probably, any other week, he gets up to, probably gets the player of the week for me, and gets the 5 votes. Probably just the fact that he was a little bit down in those periods earlier in the game. But again, you want your clutch players to be there at the pointy end of the game, and he was. So yeah, and it was interesting. Just to touch on it, yeah, the coaches' votes went. I think Zach Butters only got 4 in the coaches' votes as well. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, 5 votes. I had to give it to Jason Horne-Francis. So we haven't actually talked about it all in this podcast yet, but which I guess maybe is going to show that he's just getting to that point that he's a real star of our team, and it's almost like expected. But he had that typical Horne-Francis game where when a game was a little bit tough for us earlier in the game, we put him up forward and he was able to pop up. He kicked his 2 goals. He had 27 disposals overall, 15 contested. He had 10 score involvement, 6 clearances. What more can you ask from a midfield ball that is 20 as well? This is the thing, is we treat that stat line like he's the 25-year-old kind of just starting to come into his prime, but he's still so far away from that in the traditional sense of what we expect from a player's development. But yeah, I think, and again, what just switched it for me, or made it Horne-Francis top for me over Butters or Houston, because Houston very well could have been, it's just when you're deciding 5 through 3, it's sometimes a toss of the coin. But
Yeah.
I think Horne-Francis across these kind of games, he's really just consistent throughout the game. Like if he gets thrown at forward, he pops up to kick goals. I think he kicked 2 goals and 1, and he could have kicked a 3rd one. But yeah, just everything you want from a player that is being utilized the way he is, and certainly in a game like this, his contest and his pressure, and then just his reasonable. It wasn't the most. I don't actually have his disposal efficiency down, but it wasn't one of the best games on that front. But again, conditions were a factor there. But he was involved, and yeah, I couldn't go past him as player. He was player of the game. I keep track in my head of who's kind of leader in my mind, and he just led throughout the game for me. So I had to just give it to him, especially once I just read over, in the cold light of day, read over his stats. I was like, well, that matches up with what I thought. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like even at the ground, post match, yeah, everyone was kind of going, like, how good's JHF's game today?
Mhm.
Like, didn't give up at all. So yeah, we didn't Yahtzee.
I didn't think we would,
and
but yeah.
very similar, yeah, sort of. Some similar names, I'll put it that way. But yeah, I've kind of weighted my votes towards who put in who put in for the 4 quarters, who put in a kind of full shift.
Mhm.
And so Just before I go on, though, I did want to just because they won't get any plaudits and they're nowhere near best players on the ground, but I just did want to give an honourable mention for their game to Jed McEntee because he actually did do another job, which kind of got like unnoticed. So Josh Weddle heading into the game has been one of Hawthorn. He's a promising young player. He's going to be a superstar. He's going to be very much like Nick Blakey at Sydney, I believe. He's been one of their best running halfbacks, and McEntee actually blanketed him while having 4 tackles inside 50, which is predominantly his role. So just wanted to put that out there that he did actually do a job again, which is interesting because again, we're like we said last week, if that's his lot, then we're all for it. I also wanted to give Todd Marshall a mention. There's a lot of people who will be going the other way. But I actually thought a lot of his, while he's not kicking a lot of goals and we're all waiting for that big season of his. I thought his around the ground like work was great for a tall forward in moist conditions. Some of the passages of play he was involved with.
Yeah, 13 on disposals. I think he was a lot more involved than what. Yeah, when I looked at the stats earlier, I was surprised.
8 score involvements, which is equal third best out of Port Adelaide players, but he actually had 3 direct goal assists. So while he only kicked the 1 goal one himself, he's had 4 goal involvements. And I feel as a sport, the AFL broadly is a bit immature to that aspect of the statistical analysis. Like you being a world football fan would know how like goals are obviously lauded, but also assists are almost equally smiled upon.
Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson coming from the wing backs. Yeah.
Like goal involvements are they kind of go hand in hand, goals and assists in soccer.
Kevin De Bruyne as well, just so I don't sound like a Liverpool sycophant all the time. Yeah, Kevin De Bruyne is a real
I still feel like we're a little bit immature. Like it's a stat that gets overlooked a lot, and it's why Geelong, particularly Chris Scott, loves Brian Myers because he's kind of breaking goal assist records. But when you factor in the fact that Todd Marshall had 3 direct goal assists and 1 goal, which meant he had 4 goal involvements, from what I can see on my screen, that's the most goal involvements of anyone out of the Port Adelaide team. So yes, we're waiting for Todd to have that huge season, and it may not come until Charlie retires. Like I hope it comes in itself. But like you got to take all aspects of Todd's game, and we all know how selfless he is and how he's always trying to bring other people into the game. And I just wanted to highlight the fact that although a lot of people are going the other way with Todd, he's still doing some shit that is valuable.
Particularly in a game that I noted, the forwards weren't doing much for me. But when I look at his
3/4 time, goals were hard to come by.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, that's a really good point to bring up.
Quickly going into my votes, I've got Jace at 1. I thought, from first half and then second half, he didn't give up. 7 tackles. Like he seems to be up there in tackles a lot, which is fantastic. It just shows his willingness to compete. 4 inside 50s, 4 marks, and 2 of those were intercepts. So just all over the ground. I've actually put Travis Boak in my votes. I've given him 2. Oh, my honourable mention was going to be Willie, so I'm happy you gave him some votes. But I've put Boak in there because, particularly early when everyone was fumbling the ball, he was grabbing it fairly cleanly. And for all the reasons that I've said in other episodes, his senior leadership and the way he was attacking the contest was setting the standard, and he just needed people to kind of come along with him. 5 of 50 meters gained, 20 pressure acts. 2 direct goal assists again. So
Mhm.
he cannot buy a goal this year, Travis Boak.
0 goals,
I
11
don't know
now, is it?
what he's
Yeah.
done. Like, he's not made the distance and then missed an open goal, like effectively an open goal,
Mhm.
kind of 35 meters out. But 2 goal assists, 5 tackles, and 7 marks. So yeah, I thought his 4-quarter effort was commendable.
Mhm.
Maybe a bit controversial, but I've put Butters at 3.
No,
Mainly because his last quarter, Herculean as it was, kind of, yeah, he kind of went out of the game for a couple of quarters for whatever reason. I don't know if they put a hard tag on him. I don't think so. It hasn't been spoken about. You would have liked a bit more. Because I thought his first quarter was pretty good, albeit, there's a couple of those moments, frustrating moments, which you take hand in hand with Zach's overall game. But yeah, the fact that he went out probably dropped him down a couple rungs for me.
I think he's at his best when the game plan is like run and gun a little bit. Like I think we still tried to
He does
control.
do the tough stuff too.
Yeah, he does
so,
do. Yeah, he does. He's a tough nut. It's just like when we really we opened up the game plan a little bit is when he went, okay, I like this is my moment. Which so yeah, the 3 votes is somewhat symptomatic of how the game was going. But yeah, him and Houston. HORNE-FRANCIS was player of the week for me, but him and Houston were the ones I diced around with. So not controversial for me at all, but interesting to see what listeners think. But yeah,
for
again,
sure. Yeah, and everyone chip
when
in
you-
their opinions for sure.
yeah, 3-5 is just like you trying to pick between your favorite children.
Absolutely. Yeah.
don't-
Especially because it's like it's what you kind of it's what you value when you assigning votes to people and how you view the game. Like it's just an interesting aspect of, and with the 5. But I've actually put JHF with my 4 votes.
I like this. There's some differentiation.
He was the fans' MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not give up for the 4 quarters. Like it's like the 4 and 5 for me is really like splitting. Like it's in my head, it's exchanged so many times, but he's kicked 2 goals in the first half. He was carrying the team along again with Travis Boak in the mid kind of. Well, Boak, I think he was a high half forward, but
especially when Wines went out, Boak got thrust in there a little bit more as well.
Good call. But JHF, didn't give up on the contest or game. Like you've already listed his statistics for the game. Playing a bit of forward and looking damaging when going forward. A couple of times trying to bite off a bit more than he could chew, but like Butters, you take it hand in hand because when it pays off, and the majority of time it does, you're lauding him. So, it's hard to give him the 4 because I absolutely acknowledge everyone's votes in the MVP. But I've given Houston the 5. So I'm pretty sure my 5 line up with the fantasy points, even though I don't have them on my phone. But those 3 goals, it just kind of bumped it up for me. Like he just taking the game, right, and just putting your hand up, trying to impact as much as you possibly can. And I can't remember who it was, but someone in commentary, I don't even know if it was our game, but earlier in the season, they mentioned that if a coach once told this player who was commentating, and it's very vague, I apologize, but they said that like if a midfielder kicks a goal, that's worth 5 possessions. I don't know what they would equate a halfback kicking a goal to, maybe 7. But he's kicked 3 among all the
that makes it a 43 possession game if it's 7 goals per game.
Like 81.8 disposal efficiency in the wet. Some contested marks as well. When the pressure's on, 5 rebound 50s to go with 4 inside 50. So he was just everywhere. It was kind of one of those down Houston games that you love because when the team was down for a large part of that game, as a leader, which he is now, he was doing as much as he possibly could to keep us in the contest. So I thought all of that considered, he was my 5 votes.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that there's a bit of, I guess that probably speaks to the symptomatic nature of just how chaotic the game was in our brains. And I guess this
Yeah.
review has been a lot of bouncing back and forth between, geez, that was shit to, geez, that was magical. Like that's, and, and,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and the player votes kind of speak to that as well, that we're just, there's so much up and down nature of it that, yeah, it's, but yeah, it's going to make it, interesting for the leaderboard as well. All right, we'll get into. We've got North Melbourne coming up this weekend. We'll run through this pretty quickly because I know you've got to head off in 10, 15 minutes.
I do.
Anyway, North Melbourne down at it's in Tassie, Blundstone Arena, or Palawa as the Indigenous name is down there in Hobart, and for Tasmania, we've got Saturday. It's Saturday at 1:45 local, so that's going to be 1:15 for in Central Time. So yeah, it's it's another one that we go into thinking, geez, we should win this comfortably, which now just gives me incredible
Yeah.
anxiety. Yeah, because our last four games we've won by a combined 20 points. So 10 points versus St Kilda, 3 points versus Freo, 6 points versus Geelong, and 1 point obviously in the game just reviewed. So, simple math is it's a 5 point average across those ones. Whereas our first three games of the year that we won by a combined 149 points for a combined 50 point, like almost 50 point margin, 49.6 if you want to get nitty gritty with it. But so yeah, it's a game that on paper, and this is a winless North Melbourne team, so there's no excuses here. But there's a team with some young talent in there, and certainly some run. They're a team that's and I guess I'll get into my thing, which changed before the show. I was going to try and and this is, I pull it to Jamie for bringing this up. We're going to try and get a little bit more into the stats of the upcoming opponent for our things as we're developing the format of the podcast. But they're a team that's while a lot of things are not going well for them because they're just young and they don't have a great defensive lineup. Obviously Griffin Logue's out for another 6 to 7 weeks, I think is what my notes say, and they're still developing their kind of core and all that thing. And obviously they lost Ben McKay in the off season as well, or Harry or Barry. Is it what's the name?
Barry McKay.
Barry, yeah,
Barry McKay.
But they're a team with obviously Harry Harry Sheezel's been obviously an incredible pickup for them, and they've got some good young run off of halfback and through the middle there. They're ranked second in rebound 50s per game, so it means obviously something goes wrong in the middle there. But for a team like us that has struggled with the transition game a little bit, or the transition against, I'll be interested to see for my thing like how we handle a team that, well, we should be beating them comfortably on paper. We obviously struggled a little bit in the early running last week against Hawthorn with some of that transition game as well, and just a team that was being brave with the ball. And I expect probably something similar out of North Melbourne, who are a team that had nothing to fucking lose because they just lose every week. And I don't say that to be mean. I'm just that's what the facts are. They're the one winless team in the competition. So they're a team that would come up against us with nothing to lose, and we have everything to lose in by comparison. They're a team that could throw a similar, and we've got a clear. There is a blueprint there as to why, like, if you do it too much, then that's what happens. Is we can come back if we do get ourselves in a hole, but there is also a blueprint there to say, hey, look, if we execute this well and do it well, then there's a path through to maybe getting a few easy ones against a team that is going to probably put the pressure on us. Speaking from a North Melbourne standpoint, they're probably going to be under the pump a little bit, but there is avenues through to the goal. So I'll be really, really interested to see how we match up against the likes of Sheezel and co, as well as just how we I'm hoping to start seeing some planning around trying to adjust because I don't want to lose what we do well, but certainly a team like North Melbourne provides an opportunity to hopefully get a win that bumps up that average scoreline, but also a team that we should beat, but also has some of those weapons that have hurt us at times. How those matchups go and how we kind of just overall battle that kind of game style as well. Again, against teams that sometimes we play down to the opposition a bit. It's something that's been talked about a lot over the last couple of years, and Certainly, this is a team that, both being opposition that's down a little bit, as well as has some of those weapons that can hurt us, so could be an interesting one, particularly down in Tassie. I don't know what I actually. So one thing I forgot to do was check what the weather's going to be like down there. But yeah,
I just checked it, and there's no rain forecast. So,
that's good. Yeah,
yeah. Don't know about the wind. That's another thing as well.
Yeah. Tassie's just a unique spot, but we've had some reasonable time down there lately. So I think we've played our last 2 times.
And no rain.
Yeah, that's Tassie weather, southern Tassie weather. Good. It'll be fun when they get that. When they get that enclosed stadium or whatever it's going to end up being. With, don't want to get into politics on here, but yeah, it's been an interesting battle down there.
Let's
Whatever it ends up being. But yeah, we've been the last couple of years we've been down there, and we've gone okay. So I think 2022 might have been. I think the last 2 years we've played down there, so
yeah, I think we've won pretty comfortably.
Yeah, even last year in that game that was obviously HORNE-FRANCIS' first game against the old side was built up, and then it ended up being not a non-issue.
Lucky for maybe one quarter.
Yeah, but ran away with it okay. So yeah, what have you got for the game?
Well, I think it's about time. Well, sorry, no, it's not about time, but like everyone knows, North Melbourne don't have too many weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a perfect opportunity for Willem Drew to do a job on one of their weapons. And I think it's best to do that on LDU, Luke Davies-Uniacke. I don't think he's had the best start to the season, but last week he actually was third best on ground, depending on what metric you want to go with for North Melbourne. But yeah, he's a contested beast, and when LDU is up, he's up, and he can turn a midfield battle into the favor of his side. So I think if you eliminate that, sure, you've got Sheasel, who I think has been shifted into the midfield a bit more over the last few weeks. He'll rack up possessions, but I think the rest of the team can maybe do a collective job on trying to get in Sheasel's head a little bit. While Drew, I think, can go to work and negate, I think, their most imposing figure from the middle, and that just allows all of our mids to do their thing. And like LDU, 27 disposals last week, 10 of those contested, going at 85% disposal efficiency. So you cut that off, and the midfield battle becomes a lot easier. And we all know Willem Drew can do a job. It's second nature for him. So who did put in a good effort against Hawthorn, just to draw back on Hawthorn, led our tackles. So no,
he was good.
This isn't foreign, but I think, again, Drew, I think, has been given a bit more freedom this year, trying to expand his game a little bit. But if anything, the Hawthorn game should be a lesson to us. I would desperately hope they've taken a lot of lessons from it, particularly the start. And if we can cut off one of their heads, one of their guns, particularly early, I feel that we should do that.
As he touched on as well, like it was some of those contested guys like Jai Newcomb and co that went to work early against us for Hawthorn. So if we can get on top of that a little bit early, and they just don't run that deep otherwise. And and Willem Drew's shown a propensity for being able to do the job as well as win some of his own ball and be a plus point on the attacking side of that too. He's very underrated in that aspect of being able to do, kind of be a Swiss Army knife in that sense. So, not much more to say apart from, we touched on it earlier. We started to touch on it, but your quick thoughts. And I know you were probably on it last week as well. There's a few that were saying about Jordan Sweet versus Vicentini this week.
I was actually going to ask if I could do my second thing that I had written down.
Oh, yes. No, yes. Do it.
I mean, you've led into it. Because we didn't actually touch on it as much as I thought we were going to. But I just thought that like I have no bad words to say about Dante Vicentini. I think that the start to his career for a ruckman has been as good as anyone would have hoped.
Mhm.
If anyone's got a Dante Vicentini in their squad, this is the type of start that you would hope for.
Mhm.
I just thought, and I still do, that the matchup still needs to come before emotion or anything like that, particularly for such a specialist position. And we found out pretty early that Meek was going to absolutely monster him.
Mhm.
Um, when Charlie Dixon is already being rotated into the ruck in the first quarter against Hawthorn, the kind of red flag already went up. And still, Visentini's effort, I have no question. Like
Mhm.
from the weekend's game, he did as well as he probably could have and possibly could have, in my opinion. But I feel that having Sweet there, who was available, with a little bit more seniority and a little bit more size, could have combated Meek a bit better.
Mhm.
And now we're coming up against Tristan Cherry, who is a formidable ruck in his own right, while not noteworthy on the end of the Grundys and the Gawns of the competition. He's one of their better players still. And again, it's such a specialist position. I think we just need to sit back and go, Soldo's our 1, Sweet's our 2, and Vicentini's our 3. And regardless of how good of an effort Vicentini has put in, he's still in the specialist position that he's chosen for. I think we need to look after him a little bit too. Like,
Mhm.
there's no point. We're playing for a premiership. We're not playing for the future per se. Vicentini's got plenty of time. He's going to come in and he's going to dominate at one point in time,
Mhm.
consistently. But he's young, and I just feel that we need to go back to Sweet to shore up our midfield department, with a little bit more size. Um, Again, not a knock on Dante at all. I've
Yeah.
been really impressed with him, but the matchup has to come first in, such a specialist position, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I was a lot more 50-50 last week than a lot of people were because I was really impressed with Vicentini, but yeah, it was evident early against Lloyd Meek that he was and that Sweet probably would have handled the battle better. Whether it would have been a completely like a huge difference, that probably
Yeah.
isn't the case, but would have battled a little bit better, and we wouldn't have had to require the early running of Dixon in there, which we've talked about a lot. That we just don't want to see Dixon taking centre bounce. If Dixon's taking those centre bounce attendances as a ruckman,
Mm.
then something's not completely going right.
Yeah,
As
you're pulling a lever that they probably don't want to have to pull.
yeah. My one wild card thought that I don't think is going to happen this week, but it would be interesting if they've talked about already Dixon's managed games this year. If this is the kind
Yeah,
of
that's
game
a good point.
that they look at and go,
Two
do
games
we?
away from the bye. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
that's true too. But he has. I've been worried about how he's looked.
Yeah, no,
He's
yeah,
a lumbering
agreed.
power forward anyway. But he actually is sneaky when he's at his fittest. He can power through to a contest. He
I
just
think
hasn't done
even his groundwork when he's fit is phenomenal
better.
for his size,
Yes,
and even that is, it looks like he
he
can't, bend over, or it's just
yeah
reaction time is
he's
off,
worried
and
about something. There's something in his I don't know what it is, if it's knee or
yeah,
ankle or whatever. But he's not as confident going to the ground,
mm,
nor in his movement when he's got open grass in front of him. He's not moving as quickly. So
yeah.
whether we have
He'll
that
kick
leave,
6 now.
fucking be down for it.
Hope
But
so.
yeah, I'd love to see a return to form for him like that. But yeah, that has been my worry. Is that I just feel like there's now, as you said,
Yeah,
there
the
is a
rest
buy there.
schedule.
There
Yeah,
is a
that's
buy
funny.
coming up. So whether they do just try to push him through to the buy, but if there is if he has come up with some soreness, and as I mean, Hinkley said before, that Dixon just puts his hand up if he can like as we
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
and we
know.
commend that, but sometimes you need to take it away
Yeah,
from him
and
as we've done with
the SANFL having a bye hasn't helped. Like Ollie Lord, for example.
mhm.
So it's going to be like Lord plays this weekend, and then do you swap him for Carlton to then go to
Yeah.
a bye? That's a discussion for another time.
Yeah.
But
And you already look forward to that.
If the SANFL played this weekend just gone, like maybe, it would have been easier to just to have that couple of games, and I don't know. It's good. It's a good thought. We'll see whether they rest the big man.
It'll be a very interesting, another interesting week X selections. As we found out last week. Well, that was more later in the week, or game day, that we found out that Zerk Thatcher was sub. But it's between the injuries and guys that are and shout out to Zerk Thatcher when he came in. I thought he did okay, considering his starting.
Weird selection. I think mostly fueled by the weather, but who bloody knows in the end?
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's
just
strange.
Touching on Hinkley said in his pre-game, I don't know if you possibly didn't see that watching the replay, but they interviewed him before the game, and he said they selected it based on the size of the Hawthorn forward line and what they expected in matchup wise
going to the game.
Yeah, and that's kind of what made sense, but then it didn't equate exactly into a good result. So
especially when he's shorter than Aliir and Radigalia, so you would have thought that.
And he's shown a propensity for being pretty athletic and able to close in on contests and so he's kind of a utility player.
He did do well when he came on. I agree.
So another interesting week at selections coming up, probably with North Melbourne as well. Going into the North Melbourne game,
Rosie and Lockie Jones to come back in, I reckon.
Yes, they're available. Obviously with Sin out, you'd think Lockie Jones comes in and Rosie, and interesting to see what we do. Again, thoughts with Ollie Wines, and again, it doesn't seem like Ollie Wines is pretty cognizant of that issue now, but the fact it's popped up again, we just wonder. And again,
I think it's going to be a tougher call who to put it as the sub.
Yes,
because Mead, I don't think has put much of a foot wrong. McEntee's doing jobs now as well, so there's no Francis Evans to put on. So you have to bring Rosie back.
Yeah, you do. I think particularly he probably wants to, if he's available and the hamstring's fine. He's had 2 weeks out now, and he probably wants a little bit of touch before going into a big game against Carlton. Not that we're looking ahead to that as far as previewing that, but that's kind of you do start thinking in 2 week blocks when you've got a game again.
Yeah.
So I know you've got to bounce, so that's about wraps it up. But a really fun podcast, a unique one.
Interesting.
I'll say this.
Yeah.
Loved reviewing a game like that with how it ended, but I hope we don't have to do too many like that. I
would agree.
Yeah, because if it's come back, we're going to win. Close games are going to be inevitable in the future of being a sports fan, but you don't want them to be against teams that you think you should be winning by 6 goals. Like if we're doing that against Sydney or Melbourne or Geelong or whoever else, it completely changes. But it made for a fun review, and as always, I appreciate you being along for the ride for it, and especially providing your unique perspective from being at the game. As usual, just always give us a like. I mean, if you're listening to this, you're probably following on the socials and whatnot anyway. So, but I know there's been a few comments on Twitter recently of people who have said they've recently discovered the podcast. So if you've discovered it,
awesome, welcome.
I think Jack. Failing to remember the last name, but Jack, if he's listening, thank you for reaching out and saying you'd recently discovered it and saying that you liked it, which is the most important part as well.
Awesome.
It'd be different
Thanks
if you
tuning into our radio show.
Yes, thank you. The 3-hour special that it is every week now. But thank you and if you found it via somehow searching on a podcast app, then give the socials a like and all that, and get involved that way too. It rounds out the experience. Good or bad that it is. That's about it. Hopefully we just win by more than an average of 5 points over the last couple of weeks. This coming weekend against North Melbourne, which we should. We're in a good position now, but we really need to start solidifying it with both. Obviously, the results are the most important, but also some of the performance is going to be the aspect that, particularly as we go into the second half of the year, we want to see the performance matching up with if we're sneaking over the line for the points as well. So, that's about it from me. Can't fucking bear.
That's it, lads. Come on, get it done.
The lads.